We'll call the Select Board meeting to order for November 12th, 2024. All members are in the meeting room that are planning on attending the meeting this evening. So we'll be here, but we're trying to pull up the Zoom link as I speak, and we'll try to get that rolling as well. This meeting is being recorded. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I think we could go ahead and see if anyone's here for public forum this evening. Residents are invited to share ideas, opinions, or ask questions regarding town government. And if Zoom comes up and there are folks that want to give us public comment that we can't pull in now, we'll pull them in a few minutes here when we get rolling. Anybody here this evening for public forum? Please.
Steve Snow, 78 Pine Island Road. My only question is Chief Bennett going to be here for his review tonight at 7:05?
Okay, thank you.
No, I'm asking.
Don't deliberate, but I'll answer in a second. Thank you. Any other public comments, Steve?
My other public comment would be, if he's here, that would be a very good chance for you to ask him as a select board what happened to my criminal complaint that we've still been waiting on since last January. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, if I look at the agenda for later this evening. Yeah, okay. I do see where is it here? Item number, where is it? Why can't I find it?
What are you looking for?
The chief.
Oh, it's matter number 10, at the bottom.
Oh, I see there. Great, thank you. Yeah, I see the item number 10. I believe the chief will be here for that. Yes, sir.
Tim Boyman, 41 Pinecrest Village. I came into the town hall today to change my party designation. I know I've been a thorn in the side of this board for a very specific issue for the past year. I want to make sure that the board understands that I actually do love Hopkinton. I'm very impressed with Chief Doherty at the fire department. I'm very impressed with the public works. I had a wonderful conversation with Connor today, I think the world of his team. It's a tough job. I think he's underpaid. I would hope you would try to get him some more money next year, because that's a heavy lift that he does on select board, on town meetings and just election days. My parents were both election judges. I know the work that goes into that. It's tough. And I also appreciate what Elaine and Chief Doherty did as far as the wildfire warnings that went out. I've lived in the West. I know the danger of that. And I've actually had to work a fire line when I was in the Army. It's not a fun thing. Tonight you are reviewing, doing the update on the chief's review. I would urge the select board to not just rubber stamp this. Please, don't take what he says as gospel. Please dig into what he's saying. There are some issues with the swatting incident, with the issue that I've had over the past year. There's very big concerns about this police department and its leadership. I really hope you just don't just rubber stamp whatever he tells you today. Dig deep and make sure that he's on the right path. Finally, I want to personally thank Mr. Clark for keeping my concerns front and center. I asked both him and Mr. Herr when they were running, what they would do to restore trust in the town amongst its residents. And I have more trust in the town now because of their actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? And then we have the Zoom, it appears, up and running. Is there anyone on Zoom? I'm assuming you can hear me. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to speak during public forum? It's on there. Everybody feel good that we're Zooming now?
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 3, the consent agenda.
Can we get the new Zoom link so we can join?
Pardon me?
What's the new Zoom link?
Is it on the calendar?
It looked like the same link. Or we could just say it out loud and the people at home would hear.
It's the one on the agenda.
Oh, it is the one on the agenda. Okay, thank you.
It says the 19th, but it's really the 12th.
It's really right, okay.
Everybody good with the Zoom? Gotta love technology. Solves everything. Okay, consent agenda. The Select Board will consider the following consent agenda. A, minutes from the September 17th meeting, accepting gifts of $150 from Carol Tedstone for the library use and $400 from the Hopkinton Women's Club towards books on graceful aging for the public library. $25,000 from the Friends of the Senior Center to fund the Hopkinton Health Department's nursing services in their efforts to support senior health wellness. And C, an intermunicipal agreement, Metro West Shared Public Health Services Collaborative. The Select Board will consider improving the IMA with the towns of Ashland, Hudson, Maynard, Medway, Milford, Millis, Natick, and the city of Framingham for the term of a public health excellence for shared services grant, and authorizing the Select Board Chair to sign the IMA. The program augments public health services provided by the town. The scope of services is contained in Exhibit B of the IMA. Those are the 3 items for the consent agenda. Does anyone want to break out anything, please? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Rather than just break out, I just want to make sure that we give thanks to Carol Tedstone, the Hopkinton Women's Club, and the Friends of the Senior Center
Those are
for their
3
contributions.
very nice gifts, yes. Joe, you good?
I'm good.
Good. Okay, so we'll keep it in order, or keep them all together. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as found on the agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda passes as submitted. Okay, item number 4, the Boston Marathon Invitational Entry Policy. Elaine, do you want to walk us through this, please?
Every year, the town is fortunate to receive invitational entries from the Boston Athletic Association for the Boston Marathon. And the board has adopted an overall policy and then annually adopts an entry policy for that particular year. Under the terms with the BAA, it goes to nonprofit entities and town organizations that perform activities undertaking in benefit of the marathon. And this year we have 50 entries to distribute, and the document in the packet outlines the process that we'll go through. There'll be an application process, and then the board will award the entries at a meeting on December 2nd.
Do we know what the count is for this year coming up? Numbers, amount?
Yeah.
But how many numbers are coming our way?
Oh, 50. We have
50. Okay, and that's been consistent for the last several years?
We had more last year because it was the 100th anniversary, but we're back to the normal 50.
50, okay. All right, great. So, what is it the board would need to do this evening then?
To adopt this policy, which talks about the random distribution and asking organizations to commit to raising a minimum of $6,000 per invitational entry.
Okay, which has been what we've had in the last couple of years in terms of dollars
It's the same.
and the random nature of the process.
We just raised it last year to 6,000, I think.
Okay.
Everybody good with this policy?
Yep.
Proposed policy? Joe?
All good.
I think so. I just want to confirm that nothing else has changed. It's the same
It's the same.
as last year. Occasionally, we've changed it a little. Okay.
I know that a lot of the charities now are at the $10,000 level for awarding a bid to an applicant. Like all the different charities take applications like we do, and they try to pick and choose those can benefit the organization the best. I think $6,000 is reasonable. It's a significant amount of money, but I think it's reasonable for us and what we do here in Hopkinton, not to put too much pressure on people and still allow them to participate, but also have them help, us and them and their causes gain the revenue they need. So I think it makes a lot of sense. Everybody good?
Good.
So the chair will entertain a motion to approve the Boston Marathon Invitational Entry Policy for 2025.
Move to adopt the 2025 Boston Marathon Invitational Entry Program Policy as written.
Okay? Is there a
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries.
And that the application will be live tomorrow morning.
Application will be live tomorrow morning.
Click on the link and it will be there.
So based on the vote tonight, we go live tomorrow.
Yes,
Many people ask me
And
already.
when will the application close? Do we know?
It's in the policy.
November 29th.
Yeah.
November 29th. So it opens tomorrow, it closes November 29th. Okay, great. Is this no, this next item is not a public hearing, is it? There is a public hearing somewhere in here.
No.
There's a tax classification hearing.
And that's coming out.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not getting ahead of ourselves on the time. Do you think we could move ahead on number 5, Elaine, or do you want to wait?
I think we can move on that.
Okay. You want to walk us through this one, please? Item number 5.
It's another application for, to sell wine at the farmer's market from Bliss Point Meadery in Bedford. And they sell various wines and under the same conditions that the board has been issuing other farmer's market licenses for alcohol.
Okay. And our permitting team is all good?
Permitting team is good,
Public safety, everybody's good?
yes.
Okay. Anybody have any questions, thoughts on the farmer's market license?
Nope.
Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the farmer's market license for Hopkinton Winter Farmers and the applicant Bliss Point Meadery of Bedford, Mass.
Okay.
Bliss Point,
I
rather.
move to approve Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, Section 15F, Farmers Market License for Blissport Meadery, I like mead myself, to sell wine at the Hopkinton Winter Farmers Market on Sundays from November 3rd, 2024 through March 16th, 2025. And I believe the time for that is 12 to 3?
11,
Everywhere, huh?
I think it's 11.
That's what I read. Okay.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Thank you. Can we confirm the name, please? I see a couple different spellings of the name. I want to make sure that the motion is accurate, stating Bliss Point, Blisspont, and it's not something other than that.
Oh, yeah, there's a misspelling.
I'm okay with it. I get it, but
Just in the script,
It
right?
is Bliss Point.
I said Bliss Point. She said Bliss Point. We're kind of all over. So it's Bliss Point, and that's what the motion was. Everybody good? Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. All set. Item number 6, another one.
So this is another alcohol license for the farmer's market, and the difference between wine and beer is that farmer's market licenses are allowed for wine, but not for beer. So for someone selling beer, they have to apply for individual special temporary alcohol licenses to sell at the farmer's market and offer samples. So in this case, they're asking for, Rushford and Sons Brew House is asking for special temporary alcohol licenses for November 17th, 24th, and December 1st, 8th, 15th, and 22nd to sell alcohol at the farmer's market.
Okay. Anybody have any general questions before we get into it?
Nope.
Chair will entertain a motion to approve this alcohol license, temporary alcohol license.
I move to approve special temporary alcohol license for Rushford and Sons Brew House to sell alcohol at the Winter Farmers Market on November 17th and 24th and December 1, 8, 15, and 22.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. That's going to be quite a party going on over there.
Oh, and thank you. I literally just came in.
Oh,
So I feel like I have great timing. Thank you, Select Board. Hello, goodbye. Really appreciate it. And any questions or any issues, the town has my contact information. Brian Goodman, one of the owners of Rushford & Sons. Thank you all so much. Have a lovely evening. Really appreciate your support. And hello, goodbye, everyone.
Love the
I did
energy.
not bring any samples tonight. I'm sorry, but next time I won't be so empty-handed. Take care. Everyone have a lovely evening. I hope this is the most debate that you have over anything tonight.
we've been looking at.
Love that energy. Okay, it's going to be quite a party over there this coming winter. All right. Item number 7 is the FY26 budget listening sessions. I think we could tackle this now. We're a little early, but do we have anyone coming to discuss this? I wouldn't think so. So it's just right here. Okay? Please.
So the board wanted to talk about various options for getting public feedback on FY26 budget as it's being developed, which is basically now through January, before it enters more of an intense phase with this board having public hearing and appropriation and so forth. So between now and then, board wanted to schedule maybe some meetings. We had also talked about perhaps an online forum with open response for people who can't get to meetings or events. Perhaps going to an event like the farmers market and having a table there, maybe once or twice during that time period. And then reaching out to organizations such as the Chamber of Commerce and talking about the issues with them. There aren't a lot of, looks like a lot of events going on during the winter, probably don't want to be outside at the holiday stroll and things like that, but that's also an option. So looking for indoor events.
Got it.
Okay, this doesn't have, we're still going to have all the departments come in before us
Yes.
individually and tell us what their needs are, and then they can take it on the road?
No, so this is for the public to
Public.
convey to you what they would like, what they don't like, ideas for the budget development process. As you're developing the budget, ideas, needs, whatever they come up with.
So wherever we're going to do this, we would have to publicize that one of us will be there?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Joe, any thoughts?
I think we talked about this a little, and I think the challenge was heading into winter, like what are the right events to attend to? I don't know off the top of my head what are like high traffic public indoor events now that the weather's changing. But I think we have to try anything. I love the online forum idea, something that's accessible to people at all times. I'm just not sure how we set up structure around that appropriately. So I'd look for feedback on that.
We can work with IT to set something up and publicize it. We've done it recently for climate change initiatives and so forth and got a pretty decent response.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the online form sounds good with the paper copies. The other event ideas I thought of, the school, something at the schools, like the winter concerts will be coming up in December, and those are widely attended. If we had a table out front for the first half hour before the concert, like especially if it's like Hopkins School, like almost all the kids are either in chorus or band. So we could get the school crowd, but I think the winter's farmers market is good, Chamber of Commerce. Do we have the library on there? At the holiday stroll at the library, maybe? And they might be already full. I don't know.
I know they're going to be having other events there at the time. We can look into that.
Yeah, I think that would be good. And I think it's fine to keep it as an agenda item for the select board meetings, but last time nobody took advantage of that, so it doesn't hurt to try again. But I appreciate these other ideas. I think that's a good idea.
That's it. I really like the idea of sort of pairing up with other things going on in town. We've tried this over the years, having separate sort of budget, informational sessions at the senior center or the library or somewhere, or somewhere else, and 3 or 4 of us would be there, and 2 other people would show up. Right. So the idea of going to other things where other people are going to be there, set up a table and just let people passively come by, which some will be quite passive and others will not. And they'll come share their ideas, I think would be really beneficial. And I think you get more participation and input that way. So I think it's a great idea. I'm curious, I don't know if Mr. Manon's had a chance to look at or to think about that himself, as he's our budget representative, you know, sort of the budget working group. So I'd want to make sure he gets a chance to weigh in on that as well. But my sense is he would support this idea, these ideas. So do you just need from us a little, we're all in, it makes sense?
We'll do as many as we can, as much as possible,
Okay.
Okay.
if you're willing.
All right. But nothing to vote at this point?
No.
And I think we don't all have to go to each one. If two of us could go to each one, we could divide and conquer kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. My challenge in the winter is I turn into a pumpkin on December 15th till about March 31st on the weekends. So I do this thing called skiing in Vermont. But I'm just not physically here. I've been here 35 years on the weekends. So I'm happy to do midweek stuff, but it would be tougher for me on the weekends.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Sue Curious is here, we could do this.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to come back because I want to make sure that we're doing this in the right timing. We're just going to get through some stuff earlier. So that's item number 7. I think we're good for now, right? We'll table it and we'll put a list together and publicize that when we get it sorted out. Okay?
Elaine, direction though to start the online survey so that we could approve it next time?
Yeah, we'll get that started.
Okay.
Yeah. We don't need to vote that. Do you want us to vote that? Yeah, okay. All right, so we're going to pass on for right now, the tax classification hearing and the tax committee update, relief committee update, and the chief review. We could,
Through the chair, Sue from the Tax Relief Committee is here. She might be able to do that one now.
we have, that's not a public hearing though, right? Do you think that has to be timed out, or is there,
It can be earlier.
this is the usual single rate or dual rate?
No, this is just a description of the committee, what they do, and what they need from.
Okay, so we're not doing the whole, oh, got it, thank you. All right, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, so this is item number 9, an update from the Tax Relief Committee. The classification hearing is what we'll come back to. Okay.
There are no policy decisions, and I'm not asking for taxpayer money, so.
Welcome. Introduce yourself to everybody, and we'll go from there.
My name is Sue Curries. I'm Chair of the Hopkinton Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Committee. It's a town committee consisting of 5 people, 3 at-large members appointed by the Select Board, the Town Treasurer, and the Chair of the Board of Assessors. We work closely, obviously, with the Finance Department and with the Assessor's Office. There's a short presentation in your packet, and I'll just try to hit some of the highlights because I know time is limited and you have a lot to discuss. The Tax Relief Committee was approved when town meeting adopted in 1999. Ooh, do I have feedback? A statute that was new that said a town can create a tax relief fund for the purposes of aiding senior and disabled homeowners in need with the payment of their property taxes. So for 25 years, we've been giving assistance. We're very dedicated to this. It helps individual homeowners who have owned homes for decades here in town. It helps our communities stay diverse and vibrant, and it gives us a broader base of types of homeowners, not just school-aged families. And it helps the town with important financial metrics like defaults on taxes, collection rate, and liens, all of which do affect how our lenders see the town. Tax relief is unique. There are other tax relief programs. We're unique in that we're controlled at the local level. So the state has allowed us to set parameters so that we can best adapt the program to the community's need. Strategically, what that means is we're able, depending on how we set the parameters, to get aid to people who need it but don't otherwise qualify for it through, say, a statutory program. The other thing that makes us unique is that per statute, we are also completely dependent on voluntary donations from the community. What's happened recently, as you can imagine, is the number of our qualified applicants, not necessarily applicants, the qualified applicants last year increased by 45%. And we expect going forward this year, probably another 35 to 40%, and the following year, when we see a larger tax increase, more than that. At the same time, over the past couple of years, our major donor, who contributed from their pilot payments and directed funds to tax relief, has chosen not to donate to tax relief anymore. So we're living on roughly 50% fewer funds coming in. In order to deal with that and have some funds so that we could continue another year or two, this year we cut awards by 27%. That is not going in the right direction. The conundrum, of course, is that we're a town committee. We cannot draw on taxpayer dollars. We do receive donations from the community, but we can't ask for them. Ethically, that's just not right to have a government committee going out and saying, hey, do you want to donate money? It doesn't come into the town per se. The money is used to fund tax credits for the seniors and disabled folks that we help. So it's a different mechanism. We did get some advice from town council. I won't go into the details of that, but the mechanism is both good and it hurts us. So I'm here just to kind of give you an update. I'd like to get some input from the group, not necessarily tonight. Mary Jo is our select board liaison, and so, you know, maybe later on, Mary Jo, we can talk about how you guys feel. In the presentation, I outlined 3 scenarios. The first is where we were heading. We were consistently putting away funds into the reserve to be fiscally responsible. And we were doing things like trying to increase the awards so they were a little more substantial each year, to increase the awards commensurate with the increase in taxes here in town, to raise the maximum income limit each year in proportion to what the Federal Housing and Urban Development's low-income guidelines are. So for example, last year to this year, their definition of, in terms of housing for what was considered not just low, but very low income, grew 10%. We cannot afford that this year. We only grew our criteria 5%. We want to keep up. We want to be able to give aid in proportion to taxes, in proportion to the cost of home ownership. And we want to be able to reach out to more people. We do not have a large amount of participation from people who have disabilities. We believe that's because they're not aware of the program. It's often touted as a senior tax relief program, and that's not the limits of it. So in your packet, you see 3 scenarios. One, which is let's keep going and growing and putting together a healthy program for Hopkinton seniors and disabled. And all of these people are not just low income. Our criteria only meet the level considered very low income by HUD. So calling it a program for low income homeowners is not correct. So that first scenario is the healthy program. The second scenario says, let's hold where we are. We will not increase with age income criteria. We will not increase with tax rates. In essence, given everything that is going on in the town and in Massachusetts, that means the program will shrink over time and will be less effective. And then the third is, let's not try. We don't like either of these last 2 scenarios. This one is not acceptable. It says we continue with the existing community donations and the donations that we get from the Marathon Bib program. And we just kind of persist on that. We project that might be about $300 and $350 a year. Our average recipient last year had a tax bill of $7,900. And you know that tax bill is going to increase. Honestly, $350 is, not acceptable. Based on conversations with the town treasurer, with assessors, and advice of counsel, we believe that the best option for funding is to go back through the pilot payment program as we did before. There were two problems with what we did before. One was we relied on a sole donor who directed the programs, the funds themselves. I'd like to get your advice as to, where you want to go with this program, what you think is appropriate for Hopkinton, knowing that the first option does require a significant, I don't know if you consider $40,000 a year significant, but, it's a chunk of change. My thought is that if we were to go forward using pilot funds, we would need to have a mechanism in place so that we're not dependent on one sole organization, and that we have some consistency in the amount of funding that we bring in year to year. The funding hasn't always been consistent in the past, and so our awards have actually gone up and down. So the people that we assist can never really be sure year to year how much assistance they're going to get. They only get assistance from tax relief after all of the other tax relief programs that they could apply for have been exhausted. So we don't make our awards until the end of the fiscal year and until assessors can tell us who has what remaining on their tax bill. So again, that's part of the strategic use of the program that we really want to continue going forward. That's the update and the ask. And I appreciate your time. I know that you guys talk a lot about taxes and controlling the budget and, making our debt situation a little more palatable to all. And I would just urge you to keep moving that way for people who are in need and at risk of losing their homes.
You mentioned the average person or persons that come to you has a $7,900 property tax bill?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. And
$8,000.
it varies, there's some.
The average is $8,000.
The average, yeah.
That $8,000 is going to 12.5, if I remember correctly. No, 12.5 in 4 years' time, or 4 fiscal years' time. Is that right?
And if you look on, I'm sorry.
That's right.
If you look on the first page of the presentation, you'll see that the average income of, and these are primarily our seniors, last year was $34,000. This is fixed income almost entirely. It's Social Security, it's a fixed pension plan. At best, those sources of income will maybe increase 2.5% a year.
Okay. Also, one other thought, and I haven't filled out forms in recent years, but when you mentioned that the government couldn't sort of seek contributions or a means to help sort of fund something like this, I thought there were pieces of that in place elsewhere. I mean, I've seen on forms, check the box here, give $1 to fund the United States public elections program.
Yes, yes.
Last thing I want to do is fund any elections program in the United States right now, but that's a whole different topic. But can't we do something like that? I mean, if the feds are doing it, why couldn't we do it?
We do.
We do.
The statute permits us to insert or otherwise indicate on a tax bill that you can check the box and send in a separate donation with your tax bill.
So we do that,
We do that.
okay? Can we encourage that? Can we market that? Can we talk about that?
I think if you asked the average person here in Hopkinton if they had seen that. They would say, what? What insert? I've never seen anything. Now, this insert is printed out on neon orange, neon green, or neon pink every year. The amount of donations that it brings in is very small. The people who do donate to the fund, interestingly enough, donate throughout the year and doesn't really coincide, as best we can tell, as, the month that property taxes are due, a lot of people donate. So,
I had a question on
And
that.
that's, no, it's just like a comment, like that's an interesting thing that it's on there because I know my taxes are escrowed with my mortgage payment, so I don't remit them myself, right? So like I don't even see, like I see that, I keep the records for all the tax bills, but like I'm not filling that out. So I think there's a lot of people like that too. That's a problem.
most homeowners in town have a mortgage, I would assume. So we do run into that problem.
It was just along the same lines, that I also have a mortgage, and it gets paid directly with my mortgage, so I don't ever write a check. But is there a way it can be done online, or, and especially a recurring donation, if you could just check it once and every year you give $100, or can you donate online on the town website?
Yes.
You can.
You can donate by check, in person, or online.
And can you do a recurring donation? So, like Project Just Because allows that, I know.
Yeah, I don't know if the town supports that. We do the online donations, obviously through the town portal.
Can we have, I'm just trying to think, like I go online to the town website to pay my water bill or to pay my excise tax, things like, for the cars and things like that. Could there be a checkbox there where you could add $5 to your other bills? I don't know, just trying to think of ways that people might see it that don't have to write a check for their property taxes.
So including it as an option on the payment portal when you go in online to
You
pay
check
other
out,
town
yeah.
bills. Yeah.
And then we can't do anything else to solicit donations, I guess.
Yeah, and the problem with it, I mean, and we did well when we had someone who sponsored, who sent money every year. But, people filling out their tax bill aren't really disposed at the moment to give another amount of money, whether it's $5 or $10. They're paying their tax bill, and I find that they just don't want to do it sometimes, And we're not giving the town another penny, and that kind of attitude, which is really too bad.
But if we market, that's what I said, if we market the situation,
doing
that
with it.
averages $34,000 of income on an annual basis, and the average bill is $8,000 going to $12,500 in 4 fiscal years, if we explain that to the town over and over again, I think we might get a little bit more traction.
We might.
But we have to be comfortable doing that. And it sounds like we've kind of stayed away from that because we don't want to.
'Cause we
We believe that the reason that we got 40% more applications last year is because we did exactly that. We had a press release. Actually, this year I did an interview with The Independent. We go through HCAM, the library, the senior center, Commission on Disability.
But that's on the application side. I'm talking about on the donor side, right? We need a revenue to increase, to offset the
Yeah,
increase in
yeah.
costs.
Yep.
I've always wanted to be cautious, about that fine line, the optics of, is the town asking me to, donate money and, are they getting something for donating? That kind of thing.
This is a report, and it's a report to us, and I really give you a lot of credit. So this is the first really in-depth report we've ever had from this committee. And I know I was on this committee when it first started, and it's just been an up and down sleigh ride. I mean, some years we've given out $100, and some years we've had nothing, and other years, it's been $700, $800 we've had to give away. Basically because of the sponsors, who we had to sponsor us. And now we're in a problem with that. Is there any way that that she could do this, send this report to the news, or, you know, somebody that could pick up the whole report, because this is good information. And it's information that people don't really realize or have out there. If she was invited to the chamber to give a report, could she do that? Sure. Certainly, okay. Those are avenues I would also like to pursue. And good job, Sue. I have to really say, you've done a wonderful job.
I've got a great committee. I mean, they are hardworking, they're dedicated, they're compassionate. I can't say enough for the support that we get here at Town Hall. CJ and I are back and forth all the time. It's just been such an asset. So, and I do appreciate these ideas. If you guys can think of, you know, where is that venue to capture people's attention other than people who might be applying? Where do we go to do that? How do we do that? You know, I can supply the words and the compelling need, and, you know, what's the venue where we can get in front of people? So we did, I did the interview with Jerry Spar this year, and the result of that was we got 8 requests for applications. Hadn't even come out yet. People said, I want to be on your mailing list, which is great. I mean, that's part of our mission, is to do that outreach and help. It did not result in any more donations. And Jerry was good about, this is the problem, they can't ask for money. But Sue says, if you want to donate, these are the ways that you can donate, which is as far as I've been comfortable going to date.
I'm just thinking another place, we were just talking about the farmer's market in the winter, to just have a table. Who are we? What do we do? Don't ask for anything, but just have this information as a handout and somebody to explain it if people ask. And, you know, people buying wine might give you an extra couple of dollars.
There you go. We'll set up right next to them.
If you just look at it straight up as a business, take all the emotion out of it.
Yep.
Straight up as a business. If you are trying to sell a product, you must ask. If you
Yes.
do not ask, you will not sell.
But we're not allowed to ask, that's the thing.
No, I think that's what we're talking about. I think we are allowed to ask. The federal government says they can ask, and we do ask on our tax bill apparently, but we don't see it because we don't pay our tax bill. It goes through the mortgage company.
Right, but it says that in the tax bill, specifically in Mass General Law, but the other ways are not. That's a
We have to
challenge.
figure out how we can ask more. I think
What
we
do
can
other
ask,
towns do, yeah.
right?
And I wonder too, like, I know the library has our Friends of the Library and a library foundation that raise money because the library itself can't raise money. I don't know if we could have a Friends of the Tax Relief Fund or something.
Honestly,
Be a
that
separate
would be
organization.
ideal, and that's the way, you know, Friends of the Senior Center, Friends of the Library, and so forth. If we could find somebody who has the interest in bandwidth to set up a
That's okay.
nonprofit to support us, that would be fabulous.
And then it says that the pilot payments used to be a major source. Do we not have any pilot agreements going on right now that we, or any that we're
I think it was a
expecting?
voluntary.
It was a voluntary.
It's a pilot specific to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was an organization that evidently voluntarily was encouraged and voluntarily made that donation.
And we've given the Tax Relief Committee 2 marathon numbers. It sounds like in recent years, we could potentially give more, but I know there's a lot high demand for the marathon numbers too.
There is, and we're really grateful for, we've gotten 1 in the past. Last year, we got 2. You know, to the question about the $6,000, we were able to get almost $15,000 from our 2 runners. I think we pulled in $7,300 on average from each of them. And those funds were all from out of state.
We have a long budget process in front of us. There's going to be a lot of discussion about taxes, tax impact, tax increases, and so on. We should always try to bring back this conversation as well into that discussion. I do think we can try and look at ways for asking more. there's a lot of folks in town, I think that if they were aware of the numbers that we saw this evening, that they would go, wow, and they'd want to help. So we can't break the law, obviously. I'm not a lawyer, but I do know that if you're looking for something in business, you got to ask. So we got to figure that out. Thank you very much. That's great.
Thank you.
Really nice job, Susan.
Okay, we got to move to item 8, which is the tax classification hearing. The Select Board will hold a public hearing to determine the percentage of local tax levy to be borne by each class of real and personal property in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56. We need to vote to open the public hearing, Elaine?
No, the chair can open the public hearing.
Okay, the public hearing is now open. With that, we'll have the assessor's office present their requests, asks, and background information, and then we'll go out to the public to see if there's any public feedback or input, and then we'll close the public input portion, and then we'll come back to the board to deliberate. Does that sound like a reasonable process to everybody? Okay, so with that, please.
So good evening. Good evening, everyone. John Neese, Principal Assessor, Renee Chen, Deputy Assessor, board members may be watching from home. I know that we only do this once a year, but we've done it several times now, at least with 3 of the present sitting board members, so I'm going to move quickly in the interest of time, but please interrupt me at any point with questions, or if I'm moving too fast and you want a further explanation on anything, I'm happy to provide that. So the PowerPoint is online. This is the classification hearing. The first part of the PowerPoint is the classification letter that we prepare. I'm certainly not going to read through it. You have had it, to take a look at. But the first part of it talks about, and we can actually go to the next slide. The first part of it talks about the different options that you will be voting on when we get to the end of the discussion tonight. And if we go to the next page, again, I'm not going to read through this. Some of it will be on the further slides, but this is kind of a summary evaluation, what the total value of the town is, average value for single family and condominiums, a little bit about new growth and the categories that came from, and the property tax levy. And if we go to the last page, just a couple of charts on the increase in value for the different classes of property over the last few years, and a chart on the 10 highest taxpayers that we have in town. So if we go to the next slide. So here is summary evaluation results. So the first line is the total valuation, and that breaks down to about 83% residential and 17% other, which is commercial, industrial, and personal property. Average single-family home value, average condominium value, the new growth tax revenue this year and where that came from. And the property tax levy certainly funds most of the revenue that we have from the general fund. So if we go to the next page, this is just page 1, or a portion of page 1 of the tax rate recap, which shows the total amount that we need to raise, the total estimated receipts, and then the amount that we need to raise on the tax levy, and breaks down the tax rate for the different classes of property. So if we go to the next slide, right now the proposed tax rate is $14.18 for commercial, industrial, and personal property, and $14.20 for residential property because of the means-tested circuit breaker senior exemption that we have. These proposed rates are subject to change based on tonight's discussion and based on a review by the Bureau of Accounts when we submit all of the financial papers, and then we've just listed what the rates were for those classes of property for fiscal year 24 as a comparison. Next slide. We do like to point out to the residents, and we will have this PowerPoint online, within the next couple of days for all the Hopkinton residents. But we do like to point out that the responsibility of the assessor is to fairly and equitably value all the property. We do not set the tax rate, and then it kind of explains how that tax rate is done through town meeting and how the residents actually play a role in what the tax rate will be. And then if we go to the next page, it's a very simple formula at that point. We simply take the the tax levy that we need to raise, and we divide that by the total value of all real and personal property, commercial and industrial property in town for the year, and that proposed rate is that $14.18 that we started with before we made an adjustment for the means-tested circuit breaker. Next slide just shows some of the different reasons for either an increase or a decrease in property value. We won't read through them, but clearly a long list of why property values can change from year to year. The next slide shows the average real estate assessments and tax bill for fiscal year 25. So we took the 918.7 as an example for the average value for a single-family home. At the proposed rate, that would be a tax bill of $13,050. We only did this one as an example, but that same property based on the average value in 2024, and the tax rate was $12,450. We did the same thing for the condominium, an average commercial property and an average industrial property, what those values were and what those tax rates would be. Next slide. Sorry, next slide. All right, so this doesn't really have anything to do with the tax rate, but town manager always had wanted us to put this in to show the residents that there are a number of different exemptions available to the residents based on income or assets. They do need to apply to them, every year, but we do give out a substantial amount of money for these different exemptions. Sorry about my throat here, but just very bad cold, that's all. A little bit about statistics and what the average percentage increase was this year. Next slide. We do like to point out that statistics are a little bit deceiving. So this is just one sample street of single-family homes in Hopkinton. And, you can see that there is actually, on this list, maybe one of them that's actually at the 10% average increase for single-family homes. But the list itself goes from 4% to 24%. And again, that depends on what may have happened to, those individual properties in terms of renovations or improvements or additions or anything else. So. The next one are just some statistics from the Warren Group. We can just go to the next one, though. Just like to put a couple of these in for you, and these are statistics that are drawn from the Gateway System, the LA4 assessment classification report. So. We're going to come shortly to the issues that you have to decide. So you have to either select a residential factor of 1 if you're not going to split the tax rate. So we'll go to the next one. Next slide. And again, we can come back to these if you'd like, but these have been explained in the classification letter. And again, this talks about the residential factor. We can go to the next one. Then you have to make a decision on whether or not to have an open space discount, a small commercial exemption, and a residential exemption. We can go to the next slide. And again, that chart now, a little bit of an explanation on what those different categories are. We can go to the next one. Again, this is what was first stated in the classification letter that we looked at. And then we can go to the next slide. Now, I do have a question before you make any motions. I do have, well, let me start this way. They're not in the PowerPoint presentation because in all of the years that I have been here, you have not voted to split the tax rate. I am not advocating that you split the rate. I'm not advocating that you don't split the rate. I do have a couple of handouts if you're interested in seeing them, which sort of explains what a split rate means in terms of the savings for residential property and the increase in taxes for the commercial and industrial property. If you'd like to see them, I'm happy to pass them out. If not, we'll start with the motions.
I would like to see them.
You'd like to see them? Okay.
Okay. Anything else that you want to present?
Yes, if we can go back to the PowerPoint, if we can go to the next 3 or 4 slides and then come back. So this is a copy of the LA5, and you also, in your motions, have to vote to approve the LA5. It is essentially here. If we go to the next page, the next slide, I think. Right there. Near the top, the second line down, it shows you what the LA5 excess capacity is, that figure of 629, 323.06. We can go back to the motions page.
So we don't want to get into the motions just yet, John. We want to make sure everybody has a chance to look at these, and then we want to make sure we get to the public to see if there's any public input, then we'll close the public portion of the hearing, and then we'll come back to the motions.
So the large sheet, you don't really have to pay any attention to. This is an options page that we run from Department of Revenue website. What I have done for you, can you hear me okay? Are you okay? Is I've taken those figures and I've shown you what would happen if you vote to split the rate. So on this second page, what it shows is the average value of, again, of a single-family condominium, commercial property and industrial property, and it shows you at a single rate of $14.20 for residential property and $14.18 for commercial, industrial, and personal property, what the tax, the annual tax would be, which matches up to the slide that we showed you. And then, just as an example, it shows you if you split the rate at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and then jumps to 50. And it shows you the change in the residential value, the single family, the condominium, and then those would be a savings to your residential property owners, which is a nice feature, but at the same time, what you need to look at, and again, I'm not advocating for one way or the other, that's completely your decision. It shows you that by splitting the rate and lowering the tax for the residential property owners, there's a corresponding increase to commercial property owners and industrial property. So if you split the rate at 5% and save the residential single-family owner $138 annually, you increase the commercial tax by $1,542 and the industrial tax by $4,656 over what it would be at a single rate. And if you go to the last column, you're saving the residential property owner $1,300, but you're charging the commercial property owner an extra $15,000 or an additional $15,000, and the industrial property owner an additional $46,000 in order to realize that savings for the residential property. Happy to answer questions if you have them, and then you can go back to your motions.
So you're good for now with your presentation of what you want us to look at?
I'm sorry?
You're good for right now with your presentation and what you want us to consider, right?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to come back to you, but just for right now, you're good. Okay, so with that, given that we're in a public hearing, we'll see if any members of the public would like to speak on this issue or ask any questions. During a public hearing, the public gets a chance to come forward and ask questions. In a public meeting, the public gets to observe what's going on in the meeting. There's a difference. So in this public hearing, would anyone like to come forward and address this specific issue around the tax rates?
I would.
Please join us as you would typically do.
Want me to sit there?
Sure, that'd be great.
Steve Snow, 78 Pine Island Road. I came with no reason to question this, but the Board of Assessors was very good in explaining how the assessments in the town are done. I own the second smallest lot on Pine Island Road, 6,800 square feet. I'm rebuilding after a fire, a 900 square foot home on it, which is tiny. The tax bill is huge. My tax bill is based on the way I believe it was explained an acre of land. People with more than an acre of land get a break on those additional acres. We're no longer a farming community. We're a McMansion community. People with more should pay more land. The house is the house. My 900 square foot house is not a mansion. It's sufficient. But with 6,800 square foot lot, my neighbor with 2.1 acres pays just a hair more than I do on my property. And for me, that's wrong. We're looking at split rates to tax the industry more, but we also should tax people that have 5 acres with a house on it. And the main reason I'm saying this is, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe Mass law has changed. So if you have enough square footage on your property, you can put an in-law home on your property, which allows someone to do something that I have no room for. I can barely fit a car on that lot. So that would just be something to think about in changing that. And that would be, I guess, directed to the Board of Assessors. And I do appreciate them. They did a very good job explaining it.
Okay. So in a public hearing, we can have a little conversation around the comments made. Do you want to try and address that, John?
Answer that question now.
Sure.
So I believe that we have met before at that property. I'm not sure, but without having all of the facts in front of me, it is difficult to answer. One of the issues that sort of comes to mind, and he would have to answer this, and I would have to look at the information, but there is a difference if the property is directly on the water in terms of the land value, and if the property is across the street from the water. His property, I believe, is on the water. The one that he was comparing it to with the 2+ acres may or may not be on the water. I would have to look at that issue. In terms of total land area, we do have a land schedule, and the land schedule sort of works inversely in proportion to the amount of land area, so that the smaller the lot, the higher the value per square foot. It doesn't mean that that land value in total will be assessed for more than a 2-acre property, but we do have a prime site first, and then excess land is only valued at $10,000 an acre rather than 1 acre of land as a building site that might be valued at $300,000 an acre. So that's another issue which changes the land value. He, as well as anyone else, is welcome to file an abatement. Well, let me go back before that. The first thing he is welcome to do is to come in and talk to us specifically about his property in this case, and we will review the information with him. And if he is not happy with that discussion, he and any property owner are welcome to file an abatement when the actual tax bills come out at the end of December. And the other issue he raised, I'm not sure, but maybe he was referring to the new law on ADUs or accessory dwelling units. That's something that really hasn't come before us in terms of value yet, because that is new, and those regulations are still being worked out. But that could clearly make a neighboring property that has enough land area, and I'm not sure it's based on the size of the lot at this point, so he may be able to put an ADU unit on his lot, even though it is smaller than the one that is 2 acres. So without having any of the other details, that's all I can tell you.
Okay. So if there's any further questions on something like that, maybe you could follow up with each other at another time. Anybody else for public comment specific to the public hearing on the tax classifications? Would we happen to have anyone on Zoom by chance that might have questions?
There are 2 people, but no hands raised.
Okay. So if you're on Zoom and you have any questions about the tax classification hearing, please raise your hand here in the next few seconds. Anybody else in the room? Okay. So hearing and seeing none, I think at this point it's reasonable for the chair to entertain a motion to close the public hearing specific to the tax classifications.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing on tax classification.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of closing the public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, so now the public hearing is closed. We're back to public meeting rules and regulations, okay? Public meeting, everybody gets to be in the public and watch, but we're not going to jump back and forth with each other. That said, so, board members, questions, comments specific to the presentation, the tax classification in general, ideas? We'll get into the motions here in a minute, I guess, but just general comments, anything, Mary Jo?
Yeah, at one time, we had a split rate for a year or two, and we had to go back. We went back to one rate. And the reason being that we're not full with commercial industrial. We have empty buildings on South Street. We need to, we're talking about getting an economic development person, and it's not the time to hit our commercial industrial with a big increase. The day may come when we will be able to do that. But, we're still a bedroom community, and unless we increase, I mean, some of these increases for the commercial, maybe the 5%'s not so bad, but boy, as you go along, to save the residents a little bit, you're hitting them with a tremendous amount of tax dollars. So, as much as, you'd like to say, oh, yeah, let's do it, but we don't really have the commercial industrial. Is it still like an 84% residential?
It's like 83.
Huh?
83 this year.
83, yeah, that's what it's been in this town for a long time, ever, that I can remember. And so we'd be hurting, I think we'd be hurting ourselves if we split the rate right now.
What's that? Mrs. Rivers?
Yeah, I would agree with Mary Jo that, given the small amount of commercial that we have, I think it would be counterproductive to try to charge the commercial a higher rate, and that fewer businesses would want to relocate here. So I would recommend we continue with the single rate like we've done.
Okay.
I'm in agreement. Thank you. Presentation was great. This was very helpful. I did want to quantify what that difference would be, and to both of their points, we'd be putting too much of a burden on our small commercial industry, and we're at a time when we need to grow that. So I don't think this is the right thing to look at splitting it right now. Thank you both.
So I've had this conversation with the assessors many times over the years, and if we think back to the conversation we just had 15 minutes ago with the Tax Relief Committee and the challenges that some folks face, I would love to find a way to split the tax rate to make it a lot easier on, residents, if at all possible. But when we're an 83% residential town, and we split that rate and we dump it all on our commercial base, guess what they're going to do as business people? They're going to pack up and leave, and then everyone else's taxes, all the residents' taxes, are going to go up. It's not going to be what we think. It's not the easy, answer to just split the rate and put it on the commercial base. The commercial base will leave, and then all of our taxes will go up because we still have to balance the books. And we've looked at this many times over the years, and we've run the numbers from 10 different angles, and it always says the same thing. If you've split the rate in Hopkinton, given the extremely high residential component or percentage we have of the base, you end up hurting the people you're trying to help. And I think that's still true to this day until we can get to a 60-40 or 50-50, which I don't ever see happening in my lifetime in Hopkinton, Mass. I think the single rate is the way to go. So it sounds like, hey, I could save $1,500 if we did this, and so I don't care about the commercial guy. He's going to pay 46 grand more.
You will.
Well, he's not going to pay 46 grand more. He's going to get up and he's going to leave, and then we're going to have to absorb that $46,000 on your tax bill. So I would love to find ways, and we're going to keep pushing to find ways to help our residents with the tax base or their tax bills, but this is not the answer by splitting it. So with that, I'll go to the town manager to see if the town manager has a recommendation for us as well, please.
I recommend continue with the single rate and with the exemptions options before the board, continuing to do what the board has done in the past.
The exemptions are basically the same argument, a little bit smaller maybe in terms of what the impact would be, but they still would put undue pressure on people we still need revenue from, our commercial base and industrial base, but it doesn't solve the residential tax burden problem, right? So you're recommending single rate, leave everything else as is?
Yes.
Which has been basically no motions on those, right, John? We've not really entertained those motions in the past.
We have to make the motion not to implement them all.
Has to make a motion one way or the
So
other.
we do need a motion?
Yep.
Okay.
We have to do six motions tonight.
Could I take you through the first two motions, or is that not
Let me
proper?
make sure that we're good on all other deliberation points or issues. Anybody have any other thoughts, comments at the board specific to the questions? Are we ready to go to the motions, you think? I think we're unanimous in sort of how we feel, and it's important for the residents to understand we do look at this very closely, and we're going to make this decision in 5 minutes, but we've been making this decision for 50 years. I don't know when we had a dual rate. I never saw a dual rate in my
Once,
time.
one year, and it went right
Short-lived.
back the next year.
We probably lost some people, and taxes probably went up.
We actually had a
So-
fist fight in here.
So, okay. With that, John, please.
So could we go back to slide 23?
Slide 23.
Okay. So I'll just go through the first two with you because they need a little explanation, and then you can take over. But you need to move on motion number 1 to implement a residential factor of 1 for 2025 unless you are going to split the rate.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got it.
So it's a single multiplier, okay? All right, item number, you wanted to talk about motion 2? Or you want to do the motions now?
No, well, you can do the motion, but
Yeah.
it has to be a residential factor of
Factor of
1
one.
unless you're going to decide.
Okay,
to
so we'll do one motion at a time. Okay, so the
Okay.
chair will entertain a motion to implement a residential factor of 1 for 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Is the motion in order?
Yes.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? It's
And number
unanimous.
2 needs just a brief explanation. So you need to move to not implement an open space discount for 2025. The reason is that this term, open space, we do have open space or open land in Hopkinton, obviously, but this term, open space, refers directly to the state land use code 200, and we have no property in Hopkinton with land use code 200, so it's really a moot point that if you voted to implement an open space discount, there'd be no effect anyway. So you need to move to not implement an open space discount.
Okay. The chair will entertain a motion not to implement an open space discount for 20.
I move not to implement an open space discount for 2025.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussions on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, not implemented.
And the chair can do the rest of them unless you have some questions.
Chair will entertain a motion not to implement a residential exemption for 2025.
Second. Or so moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous and so carries. Chair will entertain a motion to not implement a small commercial exemption for 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
This is the real one here. The chair will entertain a motion to implement a single tax rate for 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous and so carries. Thank you. And then finally, the chair will entertain a motion to approve that Form LA5 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
This LA5 incorporates the various things we just voted, correct?
That is correct.
We have it figured
That's
that
correct.
way.
And the main reason to show
Anticipated
it
that
to
way.
you is that it shows the excess levy capacity that was not spent. And, but it does show the tax rates that we just talked about.
And the single rate.
And it used to be a form that you had to sign, but Select Board no longer needs to sign it, but you do need to approve it at the public hearing.
Okay? So we have a motion on the table and a second for the LA5. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Thanks for walking us through that. All right, so now we're a little behind schedule, but I think we're right. Going to item 10 then, which is the annual review, police chief. So Chief Bennett, if you could join us, please. This is item number 10 on the agenda. We're a little bit behind schedule. We had about 40 minutes set aside for this, so it's 7:20 now, so we'll try to wrap this thing up by 8 o'clock, right? No, yeah.
Elaine, there is someone with their
If you
hand
need
up.
that much. I'm
There is
sorry?
someone with their hand up on Zoom. I'm not sure if it's for this agenda item. Jeff,
It's not. This is Jeff for Bliss Point Meadery, and I wanted to let the board know that I was here. I didn't know any other way to do it.
okay, we already approved it, so.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you needed to get to me or not. All right. Thank you very much.
Cool. Okay, so this is for the police chief review. Earlier this year, there was what I believe was termed a mid-year review, check-in of the police chief. And my understanding, and in talking with Elaine, following up on that, it never quite concluded, that particular mid-year review check-in. So I think it's important that we finish all the business that we start at the board level, whether it's from this board or a previous board or board 10 years ago. We have to keep things kind of running with continuity. So I think it's important that we go through and sort of check in again and see if we can make sure that we don't leave anything, any open items lingering out there. And so I thought it'd be good to get everybody together and do this. This is not, it says annual review. This is not an annual review of the police chief, okay? What started earlier this year was a mid-year check-in. It never finished, so we're gonna wrap up the mid-year check-in. Okay, I don't know why we had to, whatever, it doesn't matter. So that is the intent of the agenda item. Does anybody on the board have any questions about sort of where we're at and what we're doing this evening here?
I didn't recall that we didn't finish it, but is that the case?
It was, well,
We
if
have
I remember, what I saw anyway.
multiple meetings.
Was, okay, we're gonna have to come back and follow up on a few things here and get back together. So here we are back together.
So this is the follow-up.
So it's taken a little while. We had an election, we've gone through some stuff. We're sorting some things out and kind of here we are. But I want to make sure that everybody is clear as kind of what we're doing.
I understand what we're doing.
Got it?
Yep, and with a mid-year, it's not something will we be giving a grade at the end of it?
This is not an annual review.
Just want to make
I know
sure.
it says that, right? But it's just to kind of get it on the agenda, but we're mid-year, still kind of mid-yearish.
Yep.
Okay? Okay, with that, I thought maybe the thing to start with would be for Chief Bennett to kind of walk us through, from his vantage point, where he is in relationship to the role and the work that he's been doing with his team members, and things he's feeling good about, things he wants to continue working on, things that he's frustrated about, whatever. Let's just get it on the table and talk it through, and then we'll have some comments and kind of go back and forth a little bit. Elaine, are you good with the process that we're talking about here this evening and kind of where we are and where we're headed
Yes.
so far? You good? Okay. With that, Chief Bennett.
Through the chair,
Thanks for coming in.
thanks for having me in tonight, and I want to thank you for allotting a fair amount of time so we have an opportunity to discuss it in depth. I had 3 key goals that I set last year. Involves community engagement, recruitment, and professional development and promotion of my staff. And I'm very pleased with the progress my team has made in all these areas, and I'm very proud of the working relationships we have with Human Resources, Town Manager's Office, and within the organization. So maybe I could go through each goal, what we've accomplished, and talk about it. And if you'd like, we can stop after each goal and you can engage in conversation. Does that sound like
Yeah,
a
why don't
solid
we do
form?
that? Let's talk a goal. You just present what you're thinking, and let's kind of hold on that one. We'll talk about it, and then we'll go to the next one.
So my entire career, I've been big on community engagement. I was part of making the first website, launching the social media, and I believe that through community engagement and people getting to know the officers, it really does help maintain that trust, and it makes us approachable to the public when they feel they need help. One of the things that I hear a lot from the public, I get kudos weekly on the officers. It's because they're engaging, and the way they take time and handle calls is supportive, and it allows people to come back when they need it. It also, through word of mouth, shares that we are approachable and we are very responsive to the community. One of the things that is going on at the PD that you'll hear a common theme throughout is that the work of the team members and how they've all stepped up and they're all working hard to move the organization forward. I had established a social media team that was rather large. I let it organically come out, and I had a sergeant come forward and ask if he could be the team leader. Sergeant Burchard took that on. He functions much as a leader. There are other people that really specialize in generating posts and maintaining the calendar and flow and ebb and tide of the social media project. But they have become a pretty much hands-off, self-running organization where they come to me and ask for things like software for editing videos and that. You'll see, I had mentioned before in one of my prior appearances that we had the bridge and the construction around town is always a topic of conversation. And we took an opportunity to show the cruiser and Jeff Pine coming across the bridge when the bridge down on Fruit Street opened, and we got 130,000 hits, which is by far the most we've ever gotten. We've had 50 and 60,000 before, but to my knowledge, we never had anything like that. So it shows that we have the ability to reach a broad audience. We have about 7,500 followers. We generate weekly. We try to generate a couple posts every week showcasing the department and other community events. So that they also took on a big role in recruitment. One of the things that we always had shied away was video or posts involving tactical things, even us at the range. And the social media team felt that we were leaving stuff on the table as far as recruitment goes, that we needed to show that we do it all, that we actively train, that we develop our officers tactically, that we, as well as engage with the community. And it worked. We've gotten great feedback during the recruitment process, during the interview process, on our social media and on our community engagement. And all the candidates report very positively on it. In fact, at the last three, one only applied in their hometown in here, and one only applied here. Now you're talking people that could get a job in 6 minutes, literally. We're working on a video series through one of our vendor. Is putting together a video series that was going to be a recruitment video, but we're full. We don't have any openings anymore. So they're going to take the footage that they've filmed as recently as Halloween, and they're going to kind of make it an expression of our culture, our values, and what the team does on a daily basis. So they're working on that. Sergeant Burchard, I met with him 2 weeks ago, and he's reporting that he's hoping in December to start releasing a series of short videos. We have a drone program through the generosity of Middlesex Savings Bank. We were able to purchase a drone. We now have two Part 107 drone pilots. And again, through the social media team, Detective Sergeant DeBoer saw it as an opportunity to engage the community. And you may have seen Where Isn't Hopkinton? And you'll see that it's interesting because people love finding these places that are out in the woods, but it's a group of long-standing residents that have been out on the hiking trails or out on in the woods finding these things. He has probably stood on every inch of ground in this town, and he's done a great job. I don't know how he's going to keep it going, though, because there's only so many things you can videotape out in the woods. And to support the team, I've given them training in social media best practices as well as public records management, because they have to be cognizant of everything that we put out. We need to be very careful. So within a subsector of the community, there's the school. We're very active in the schools. We have one school resource officer. As officers come online, I've trained our next school resource officer who was selected, Augusto Diaz, and he's been trained and certified through NASRO, as well as he's post-certified. So as people start coming out of the academy, and I'll speak to that, we will be putting a second school resource officer in the schools. We work with the Elmwood School Building Project. That's the wrong name. Senior Center Study, Metro West Anti-Bullying, Spark Kindness. And one of the things that they truly enjoy is working with Mr. Scott's engineering class. A couple of years ago, one of our ideas got a couple of students national recognition and patented a flashlight based on interviews with the officers. I think that the members of the Hopkinton Police Department are probably the most visible people in the community by nature of their work, but also they actively seek out engagement. When you saw that Crown Vic in the Horribles Parade, that officer approached me and asked if he could go in. They're seeking engagement with the community. They're not being voluntold to go do something. They want to do it. And I put a list of this in a document. Every year we do our senior dinner and our fishing derby, our Special Olympics basketball game, coffee with a cop. This year we added first responder, thanks to the support of Alltown. First Responder Day. They go shop with a cop. And something I think that will touch a lot of people and is the Blue Envelope campaign that's going on statewide, where you can come by the station and you get a blue envelope, and if you were to be stopped by a police officer, you would put your registration in it and would signal that there's a person in the car that may be have autism, and so that the officer can work to not trigger that person. I think we all see the officers out there with no shave, with the beards. Not a huge fan, but they do it to raise money, and I extend it a couple months beyond that because they really like it, and it's for a good cause. The money usually is always donated to something in town. A couple of things that were stand out that were I think big successes was the half-day pizza party, and I spoke to that. That again was through the generosity of a community member who donated money to the department. That person wants to be anonymous, but I'll share with you that they have more years of service to the community and the children than I do. So they're retired now, but it was a very kind gesture, and they actually were able to come up and see the kids enjoying their donation. And then Augusto Diaz, again, trying to connect with the children. You've met him. If you met him on the street, he's very charismatic. He came up with the Sweet Scoop citation. To bring that forward, we partnered with 2 local merchants, and we had some citations issued, and if the police officers observe a child being active or being kind or being safe or other commendable behavior, they give them a coupon, which is good for an ice cream, and they go down. Again, that's funded by that gift from that anonymous person, so it doesn't cost the town any money. You'll see us at Halloween events, Porch Fest. We're involved in the Freedom Team, Trunk or Treat, events on the Common, and even at the opening of the pickleball court. One thing I think warrants mentioning is we had First Amendment auditors in town, and we delivered specialized training on it. People may not know what that is, but it's a group of people that go out and take videos in public places where they're allowed to be, where they can lawfully video, and they're looking to see the reaction. Recently, we had one on Main Street, and the officers were very well trained, and they're actually nationally recognized now as being, at the headlines, well-educated cop. Nick Walker did a great job. Sergeant McNeil never even got out of the car. He approached him, explained that he knew what he was doing, and then went in and spoke with the business owners who were very upset about it. And again, it shows that through our training and our commitment to the community, we're protecting people's First Amendment rights because we value them. Again, a lot of positive feedback from around the country on that topic. But it's a direct result of the training that we've delivered. So, that being said, I think I covered most of our efforts. I'm sure I left some on the table, and for those who I forgot to mention, I apologize. It's always tough if you use a name, because if you leave one off, you offend, or you don't want to leave anybody behind.
So for community engagement, lots of social media posts, continue with that. I totally think, that's the way to connect in the world. Like it or not, it's the way to connect. Regular posts. And you mentioned 2 SROs coming. Can you speak to that a little bit more, please?
Sure. We have one now. Sergeant Matt Santoro is in the schools. And then Augusto Diaz has been trained, and he will go into the schools full-time once officers come online and we can staff all the shifts to what the goal of staffing the shifts are. He'll go into the schools.
And both will be in the schools on a daily basis?
Monday through Friday, unless they take a day off.
Okay.
Yeah. So one will be at the high school predominantly, and one will be at the middle school and cover the middle school and lower grades, because the workload traditionally has been less. That being said, sometimes you have either students or things going on in the middle school that take more time.
Is that second SRO budgeted for FY '25?
Yes.
For a full year or a half year? Is there some money saved there?
Part of the budget.
Sorry?
It's part of the regular budget,
Part of the regular budget.
and it's fully funded through the police department.
Great. Community engagement, questions, comments? Mrs. Ritterbusch.
Yeah, no, I think it's been very evident seeing all the work they're doing in the community, the pizza day on the Common. I've certainly seen all the social media posts. Let's see, and I saw Officer Diaz at the new mosques. They had an open house recently, and he was really nice, letting the kids try out the car and taking their pictures, giving them stickers. The kids really appreciated it. I think those are really good events. So I'm happy to hear he's going to become a school resource officer next. Let's see.
And we do have, Sergeant Boulogne is a certified school resource officer. She came to us with that certification, and we help her maintain it. Someday she was always available to help, but someday she may end up in that role. We'll see. But, so we have 3 certified SROs.
Yeah. And I think last time when we did a review, I mentioned that it would be good to do more videos and YouTube type things, and it seems like that they've taken that on, so that's great. And the drone, I think the drone is really interesting, and they could practice using it, and then if you need to use it to help find someone, you'll be able to. And I went to that First Amendment training or a webinar about that too, and I'm glad that a lot of people went to that. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay. Joe, community engagement, comments, questions?
I love seeing the social media activity. I think it's just an easy way to get out to, your current residents and stuff. A lot of activity on there weekly. I see them all. I think it's great. And I think it's working. I think I've gone to at least to, the Coffee with the Cops, the First Responders Day. It's evident by how, obviously your department's turning up and the rest of the first responders on the last one, but the residents are showing up. They're hanging around. They're not just grabbing a coffee. That was very evident to me. Attending those things, and I think it's a great sign of where the department's going in regards to community engagement. So I'd certainly encourage keeping that up because it's working.
Thank you. One of the things that I hear a lot is, the legends have retired. The Pat O'Briens, again, I don't want to mention Phil Powers, and a lot of the long-term residents are looking for ways to connect with the new officers because they felt comfort in knowing them. Some people move in, they don't care, but if you had relationships with officers for years that you knew, they want that. So I get a lot of feedback from them saying, thanks, it was good to meet this officer. Now I know 3, So it's a good outcome. Thank you.
Mary Jo.
Well, I really like anything that you do with the kids. And I found last year when we did the pizza party in the spring, kids were so happy and so excited, and they went around and they said, we met Officer so-and-so, and we met Officer so-and-so, and we met the chief, and now we know him, and they would talk to each one in groups, and it really did make a difference in the young people and the police department coming together. It was just amazing, and they had a lot of fun, but that was really the key. That was more than that. I mean, they didn't come necessarily for the pizza and the ice cream, which was great, but they really loved meeting everybody in the department and feeling like they knew them when they left, which to me was an amazing feat for one day, and I want to see something like that keep going, because we need that communication with the young people.
Thank you. I couldn't agree with you more. And one of the other byproducts of that is in officer wellness, because it's a hard job. It really is. And it's changed, and it's very challenging. I mean, people are leaving the industry left and right. You can't recruit. But when they see what they're working for and who they're working for, and they see appreciation, whether it's from you or from members of the community or the children, it's really what keeps them going. It's so good for wellness. It really is. So we gain from it too. So we're happy to do it.
I think there's been a very strong presence, at least in the last 6 months that I've been watching and getting kind of on a daily basis with the police department. I've had the chance to go to a couple of those things at Alltown, and while I don't see the social media posts, I hear about them from others. So I think we should continue that. As we're talking sort of mid-year check-in here and review, some feedback, we should continue that. The guys and women, we want everyone to be present when they're out in the cruisers and doing their work, and we want to make sure that the community gets a chance to get to know them in a safe way, but knows that they're there for them too, to help them if something were to come up. One question I do have, though, specific to sort of community engagement, is interacting with citizens and their requests, right? And we do have citizens that make requests of the HPD from time to time. Can you describe to us what the process is if a citizen wants to file a criminal complaint? How does that work? And what are the obligations, and what are you allowed to do within law?
Sure. So typically, when you say a citizen complaint,
or a citizen complaint, or they want to file a complaint, or they want to file a criminal complaint, something like that. Is it possible for them to do that? How does that work? How do you investigate, what you can and cannot do?
Sure. So, I mean, anything to do with a criminal complaint involves our partnership with the district attorney's office.
Sorry?
Anything to do with a criminal charges involves our partnership with the district attorney's office.
Okay.
If a citizen's coming in to complain about another citizen, and it's quite often a civil matter, we'll document what we can for them and refer them to the court, the civil court, because we can't take civil action. We can't serve divorce papers. We can't serve bankruptcy papers. We can't do evictions. It's not in our purview, in our authority.
Got it.
If it is criminal, then we would take the matter and approach the district attorney's office, either through a complaint or through arrest or through a meeting. We often run things by the district attorney to see if there's charges are warranted.
Got it. So, I'm dating myself talking about Barney Fife and Mayberry RFD, but he would run around and yell about citizens arrest, and everybody in the show laughed and had a lot of fun with it. Is that a thing? Can citizens claim a criminal violation has taken place and do something about that? What are their rights? So how does that work?
Sure, a citizen can go down to the district court and file charges against someone.
To the district court, why can't they come to the HPD?
Well,
is it the same if they do that?
We would be charging. We would charge. So if we're involved, we're going to be the charging authority.
Okay.
We might counsel someone on how they can do it independently, or directly refer them.
What if they come to you and you guys decide not to charge? How does that get handled? Or someone else, I guess the district attorney decides not to charge. How does that get handled?
Well, they would still have the opportunity to request a clerk's hearing on the charge.
They would request the clerk's hearing.
Yes,
Okay, so that's on them.
yes.
Got it. As the one raising the complaint, whatever.
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. In almost all forms of government, there's another venue, another opportunity.
So when if citizens were to come to you or your team members, you guys would walk them through that and explain what their rights are, what the process is, and what they would have to do, what they would have to own. It sounds like they would own that clerk's process, correct?
Yes.
But the person making the complaint, you guys don't own that. Why wouldn't you guys own that?
Because we don't charge based on every accusation.
Okay.
So depending on what the accusation is or the charge, we may or may not charge. We may run it by the district attorney and they may decide not to take charges. We may bring it to a clerk's hearing and the clerk doesn't uphold the charges and it ends there.
Do you always know what happens once it gets to the district attorney's office?
No.
Meaning, like,
Active things in this community right now that I have no idea what's going on.
and they're not obligated to let us know?
No, it's an upward relationship.
But that's per Mass General law.
It's within the purview and authority of the district attorney to manage their
So
investigation.
that's a DA office discussion or decision. Okay, interesting. All right, thank you for that. Anything else on community engagement and the chief's, one of his primary goals to improve and enhance community engagement? Everybody good? You good on that topic?
Yes.
Jessica, anything you want to share on that topic?
I'm good.
Okay. Next topic, please.
All right, my second goal was officer recruitment, and as I touched on earlier, we have currently from 21 officers actually working in uniform. We had posted back in December and took applications to open up people to go to the academy, and I worked with HR to get that posting, and it was very successful, and I'm happy to say that 2 weeks ago, we put out 3 more offers, which one is academy-trained lateral, and there's 2 that we're going to send to the academy, and that puts us, providing they make it through the process and through the academy, at full staff. And we have someone graduating the academy Friday. We have 2 graduating December 6th on a Friday. That next Monday, another one starts. If the lateral gets through the background, and I don't see any reason why they wouldn't, they haven't disclosed anything so far, they could be on board with whenever they decide to separate from their other department. And the other 3 would be looking at like a January, February academy start date. One of the things we did to try to accelerate it is the FTO team. Again, another example of how the sergeants have stepped up is the FTO team is working now to see if there's ways that we can bring people in before the academy and do some of their training, not necessarily law enforcement related, but there's a lot of, being a government employee, there's a lot of training associated with that. There's onboarding, there's software learning, the multiple software platforms we have. So if it's an 11-week FTO program, we might be able to, when they get out of the academy, get them on board at 8 weeks. So that's one thing that they're building now. But the reason that I really want to showcase that work is, once again, like the social media team, we've changed the way we do things in HPD. Sergeants are expected to build teams. They build teams and they take people along with them. And in doing that, we've changed it there, and we've changed it in the way that each level of the organization or each assignment of the organization gets cross-trained. We were with a recruit who was basically sizing us up in this last round of interviews, because you're trying to convince them to come, because they can go anywhere. You know, if they apply 5 places, they're going to get 5 offers. So one of the candidates asked about opportunity for not only advancement in rank, but in specializations. One of the things we do at HPD is, if you're an officer, you might get specialized training as a detective. crime scene processing, photo, because we're trying to broaden out the skill set, because we have had periods of time where there was massive voids in the skill sets, and we're not doing that. So even at patrol, you're going to get specialized training in different topics. You're going to get the first level of leadership training, sergeant type school as a patrolman. It's not going to happen over in a day. You know, they're a week-long course, but that's going to happen. So everybody's going to be, if they're willing, they're not going to be voluntold to work out a grade or anything. But if they're willing, they're going to learn laterally, horizontally, and vertically skill sets. So sergeants are being exposed to training at the lieutenant level. Lieutenants will be exposed at the deputy level, and deputies and lieutenants will be exposed at the chief level. And we saw through the response of the recruit, since we're talking about recruitment, that they were very impressed by that. They had just been in an interview earlier in the morning in their hometown, that person I spoke of, and said that she was very happy to hear that, and she accepted the offer, which we gave her right after the interview. So again, there's an instance we have someone that's going to get 2 job offers the same day, and she chose us. So
this goal is titled officer recruitment, correct?
yes.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
No, and we did it. Thanks to, I would be remiss if I didn't express throughout all of this the support of the Human Resource Department. I mentioned it later on, but we did four sergeant promotions, a lieutenant promotion, a deputy process, hired 7. All while HR is still being taxed by every other department. So I want to say thank you. Thanks for all the work your team did. And we could not be here tonight with having met that 100% without your help. Thank you.
You're saying you're at 100% in your recruitment goal?
We are not interviewing. We are fully staffed, providing the tentative offers that are out there, get through the background, and get through the academy.
So we have a chief. We don't have a deputy chief, correct?
That's correct.
We have a lieutenant.
Yes.
We have 2 lieutenants.
1 lieutenant.
Walk me through it if you would, please. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
All right. So the current structure is the chief, deputy, and lieutenant, and then the sergeants. And there's 2 groups of sergeants. There's sergeants with specialty duties, like the detective sergeant that I mentioned, or a school resource sergeant, and an administrative sergeant. There's the group of uniformed sergeants that run field services or patrol. So each group has a sergeant that would say the evening shift sergeant, the midnight shift sergeant, the day shift sergeant. And then there's the split sergeants to fill in the days as the people rotate through their days off. So currently, under the organizational structure, we have a deputy, a chief deputy, and a lieutenant.
Okay. All the sergeant positions are filled,
Full.
and they're not waiting on graduations or anything like that. They're all filled.
They're in place and
with
functioning.
experience, Yep. And then we have the officers, and those officers that aren't physically here are coming here. They've accepted offers and actually on the payroll, even if they're training, correct?
The day they start, they're on the payroll, whether it's down at 74 Main Street learning or whether it's in the academy. But right now, those people are not on payroll.
Anything else on recruitment you want to talk about?
I'd take a moment to thank all the officers and the lieutenant and for all their work as well.
Mary Jo, questions on
well-oiled
that
machine.
goal?
Well, we're close to being full.
Right.
I just have some comments. The new people that I've met, because I'm at the station at least twice a month, and we've talked, and I've met many of the new officers, and I'm very impressed with the new recruits. I think that we've got a good base, and I'm sure coming up, I've met some of the girls and the people, and you know, you've been wonderful, and they've been wonderful, and I'm really, really happy that we're almost at a full force again.
Well, there's a sense of pride for me and for you. You should know that they came to me. just a few individually that were involved in the hiring process, and they said, Chief, we don't want to settle, we don't want to lower our standards just to fill spots. And I said, no, we don't do that. We don't do that here. They don't, very rarely do I turn a candidate away because they won't send someone to me. First round interview I'm not involved in, and they won't send me someone that isn't a good fit for the community and the department. There's been a couple, and it was usually related to something in the background that we just didn't want to bring forward.
Anything else?
No.
Joe, officer recruitment.
Can you remind me, when was the last time we were actually fully staffed? Roughly how long ago was that?
I think, from my memory, the night that Brittany Firth was hired, we were fully staffed, and then the chief left. Then we added, that was a 25-person roster that was going to be effective in the budget year the following July. The board made some moves to bring someone else in and hired an extra body ahead of that using the fiscal money that was in the budget. So it went up to 25. I don't know that. So then I came in and we added 2 or 3 more bodies to get to 29 and as part of the legacy build out. So it's been a long time, 10, 14 years.
Yep. And so over that time, it's grown, not quite 20%, but close to it, just from 25 to 29. And obviously the town's grown a lot. Do you think the size, that 29, is appropriate to support Hopkinton and where it's at today?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of what our conversation today is also should be where we're going. I think given the community, the way it is right now, 29 is a good size. I think if we were to start having more crime or the dynamics in the community were to change, the build-out typically would be about 35. Historically, we've averaged about 1.4 officers going back. I went back decades, 1.4 officers per 1,000. The national recommendation is like 1.8, but this is a beautiful community you have, and we can get by with less. I think our need is in the structure. Now that we are miles away from where we were 2 years ago, you've seen the talent, you've seen the work that these sergeants and lieutenants can do. I think we need to have a conversation about the structure, the command structure within the organization, given the workload and where we are as a newer department and all the work that we need to invest in our command staff and sergeants and the new patrolmen.
In like what way can you?
Sure. So when I came to you and asked for administrative sergeant, that work we're learning would more appropriately be a lieutenant and have an operations and administrative lieutenant. And I think if you go back and watch, you'll see exactly what needs to happen at HPD. This time that we have taken and the development that came and the work that they've done, the department is organically, if you could go down there and ask them, who's in this spot, who's in that spot, who's in this spot, and they will tell you. I can't tell you now because it's a promotional process, but it has organically formed. The leaders have risen, they've defined their skills, they've worked their projects to demonstrate that they can do it, and it happened organically over time. It just needed time. That's why the administrative sergeant was requested. I was thankful for the support of the board in bringing it in. But if you asked me candidly, we need to have 2 lieutenants and a deputy.
Didn't we used to have an administrative lieutenant and an operational lieutenant?
John Porter and I were lieutenants. There was no deputy at the time. So there were 2 lieutenants.
So that's your recommendation. Is that inside the budget for fiscal year 25?
So one of the unfortunate things is that sergeants make more than lieutenants. The disparity in their base pay is only $9,000, and sergeants make overtime and get paid for their holidays, and so there's not, most sergeants make significantly more than a lieutenant.
Is that a statewide thing, or is that just here in Hopkinton?
It's the ability to work overtime,
And that's a statewide thing.
yeah.
But lieutenants statewide don't get overtime.
Depending on the organization, it's unique to each organization and what they've agreed to. And same with like larger organizations like the Sheriff's Department or the State Police. You can go up to a certain rank and then you don't get overtime. But there are lieutenants in the bargaining units in towns our size. And they do get overtime.
You got to figure that out. That doesn't make sense. You rise in rank and you make less money.
But it's like,
That
you
doesn't
know,
work in my office.
no, but it's different, right? Because I compare it to, being familiar with the fire department growing up, it's the same thing. You lose that overtime, but that money comes back in the form of a pension, right? So you don't get any pension on overtime. So if your total pay is, let's just say 60% base and 40% overtime, you're only getting pension on the 60%.
I'm glad you're here.
You want to get your promotion like with 3 years left. And then ideally, you take the last promotion, work your 3 years and retire. Or, unfortunately, which is another dilemma, is you promote up and out. So someone would take a promotion and then go seek a chief's job somewhere else.
So then as you're promoting people to lieutenant, you got to talk about the full package, right? You got to talk about the benefits. You got to talk about the future opportunity that would be different if you stayed sergeant at a lower base. Right? Something like that. Yep.
Yes.
All right, good point. What else, Joe? Anything?
I think I'm good right now.
Sorry, I was jumping in a couple of times. All good thoughts up. Amy?
Yeah, no, thank you for the update, and it's been great to watch over the last 2 years how much it's increased. And it's really been impressive, and like a lot of people now, you can see the lists on the post-commission website. I download it every month. Like, we appoint someone, I put it in my spreadsheet, and then I wait for them to finish the academy, and then I can see that they're checked off and they're here. Anyway, so I'm just glad, so I'm happy that the recruitment is up and that we're now going to be full when these next group get all onboarded. So I don't think I have any further questions. I think everybody asked all the questions. So.
I think officer recruitment was one of the topics that was covered quite a bit earlier this year when you were before the board. And for various reasons, I think you've made some great progress here. The fact that we're almost full with offers anyway. We'll have some turnover probably. I mean, it happens in any organization. We don't want it. I think we got some great folks out there and we'd love to keep everybody, but it may happen. And people want to advance their lives or do something different or change careers. We want to encourage people to feel good about what they do, so whatever that is. But I do think we've made some great progress in this particular front. And we want to make sure that going forward, we don't stall ourselves for whatever reason, however that happened, whatever, what's done is done. But we got to make sure going forward that, recruitment, filling positions, having guys, men and women in the car, making sure everyone's out there taking care of the public and highly visible with a full force is really important.
Thank you. And the troops should take pride in the fact that many of the people that are coming, they recruited. With the pizza party, Noah recruited his friend. Adam, you met Adam. He showed up and was given pizza out. He brought someone he cares for, and that your best recruitment tool are your employees. So I'm grateful for all the people that they've brought in.
Okay, I believe you have additional goals.
Got one left.
One left. Good, we got about 5 minutes.
I'll go quickly. I'll go back to the concise Joe. So we have a lieutenant who we promoted and begun training, who is functioning at the deputy chief level. He can do and perform every duty of the deputy chief, and in fact, most of the duties, not as well as me, but that I do. So, but he's learning. And we have, so we had completed the lieutenant process. The deputy chief process was completed, and there are 4 candidates that remain after the assessment center. And I think we need to work on moving that forward. And I noted that I'm available to work with you towards moving the deputy forward, and then, if need be, any subsequent lieutenant process. The processes have all been completed. It was a pretty rigorous, we've spoken to it a couple of times, it was a rigorous process. An outside vendor was brought in. They had essay questions, full-day assessment, interviews with a pretty mixed interview panel, and the ranking has been completed on that. Again, in line with how we're changing things, you know, the sergeants, I have put a long list of the training that they're going to, and next level.
What is this goal titled?
This one is promotion and professional development of command staff.
Professional development, okay, got it.
So the promotion portion is, we've promoted a lieutenant, the deputy process is complete, and as the appointing authority, you need to give me guidance on next steps.
Okay.
And
That's one thing inside that professional development.
yes, so you could say it's 50% done. The next part of it is kind of the professional development and training within the organization. Again, recognizing that we went through a period of time after separation of very active and busy employee. We need to create bench depth, to use a sports analogy. So as I spoke about patrolmen getting detective type training or exposure to the school resource role or any of the other roles, we're doing the same with the sergeants and their training and their exposure. So as we move through the budget cycle at my staff meetings, I'm verbally walking them through with, thanks to the help of Susan as well, Susan Schuler, my administrative manager. We're giving them awareness type of training. In my industry, that means that, you know, you might go to a 4-hour class on bomb detection, you know, or behavioral observation. Kind of introduces the concept, begins to get you thinking about it. Additionally, some of the sergeants have been taught about the budget. When I've sat down with them, and this is how we create the budget. We could begin with personnel and contractual obligations, and then we build it, and the expectation to be from the bottom up, and as well as tasks like payroll. I never did payroll until I was a lieutenant. Never saw it, had no idea how it happened. I didn't know how to log into Munis. Even though I was managing grant money, I didn't know how to do any of that. And your sergeants are being exposed to that. And if we do move down in operations and an admin type of structure, they will be cross-trained. So across the organization, we're cross-training, and both vertically and horizontally. And there's a big list of classes that they've attended. Again, reaffirming that the sergeants, when given a task, if it used to be that you collected things, so if you became the grant person, you'd write grants, and then the chief would tap you on the shoulder, ask you to do something else, and now you do that, and then you get promoted, and there's that historical gap. But we don't do that anymore. The sergeants, like training and social media and FTOs, they're all building teams, so they're bringing people with them at the patrol level. It's very successful, and I feel just, I don't know how to describe it. They're coming to me looking for opportunities. Like, you know, there's been conversation about active shooters, and rightfully so. I want to speak to any community member that has a concern about the safety of the children. I had a sergeant come to me and ask to take lead on the whole program. So he's been working diligently on that. We currently have some members trained in the state selected active shooter response. We have classes reserved in January, and this sergeant's already begun working on bringing training and exercise to Hopkinton. And this was on his own initiative. He asked to meet with the lieutenant and I, and asked to take lead. So that's the atmosphere down there. It's excellent. I mean, when you have coworkers coming looking for more work, that's a good thing for a leader.
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Sure.
The last one, just real quick. The active shooter one, thank you for bringing that up, because I know there's been a lot of outreach in the town, and it's something I want everyone to know. I believe it's on next week's agenda to discuss, kind of the incident response
We
in
have
more
that on
detail.
next
So I appreciate you bringing that, but I want people to know that we're taking that seriously, and there's a lot more conversations to be had, but thank you.
Sure, and thank you for the conversations we've had. And if, with your permission, I'd like to bring some members from my team to that.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think.
Okay.
So,
Piggyback on that a little, just,
Right.
could I piggyback on that a little bit, too?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm glad we're going to be discussing it in public, because I've heard concerns, too, but I've had to email a lot of residents directly and show them how we've been doing that ALICE training since 2015, when my kids were in elementary school, that they didn't know. It just didn't come to light until now. And then we had that whole discussion about a year ago about the school resource officer role, and we talked about the ALICE training at that point, too. So I know people don't always pay attention, and so they miss these things, but I'm glad we're going to do it again next time.
Yeah, I think when it comes, my opinion, and you can go to, Chief, when it comes to our, children's safety, we can't do enough. So I think we're just looking at it. We have an opportunity to see how it went, what can we do better, that type of thing. That's my opinion, and next week is the time to talk about that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
will we be including our colleagues from the schools in that discussion, that agenda item? Have they been invited to that?
I don't know if they've been invited yet, but we will.
Yeah, please. I think it would be important to have them here as part of that conversation. I'm not sure who, I would let them figure out who they think they should send, but I would think someone from the administration, whether it be however they want to do it. Okay? All right, so back to professional development. You good for right now, that topic?
Yeah, I just wanted to call that out.
Okay. Professional development.
So again, in the organization, we have many new officers. We have recently promoted sergeants. We have promoted lieutenant. We got to keep moving, like you said about community engagement. We just got to keep moving, giving them training, exposure, support, and this is the time to invest in the people. This is the time to invest in the people. I can't stress it enough.
Okay? You good for your side anyway?
Yes.
Not side, but your conversation. Is there a specific number of hours the individuals in your department need to train on an annual basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of the public doesn't know. So we do 40 hours of in-service on state mandated topics. And
I mean 40 hours in service.
So every year we have to do legal updates, motor vehicle and legal law. Every year we have to qualify with our firearms twice a year. We have to take CPR every year, even though the certificate is only good for 2 years. We have to do CPR every year. Then there's usually 3 days of chosen instructor classes by the Massachusetts Municipal Police Training Council, which is our training entity, where that board will pick the topics and then we all have to take them, whether it's virtually or in person. We partner with Holliston and Sherburne, and for those learners who prefer to learn in person, we send them. Some people prefer to learn online, and they have that option to take the classes virtually, where a certified instructor teaches the class. It gets recorded, and then you go into the platform called Arcadis, and you take the class and sign off on it.
So those are all required professional development courses that they must maintain certification for and get the hours to keep continuing to serve as a peace officer, right?
Yes, and then additionally, if you have certain specialties like SRO, there's additional training, state mandated training for that certification.
So that sounds like that's for the rank and file folks and perhaps the sergeants. What about the command staff? What about the lieutenants and the chief? What are your professional development obligations or requirements?
So I have to meet all of those for every police officer.
You got to do all that stuff.
Do all that stuff. I'm one of the 7 EMTs that remain. So this year we'll take 40 hours of specialized EMT training, most of it online. We have a professional development program that we put. Traditionally, it was people in rank, so based on their rank, what classes they can attend. And we have some key partners in that. There's the MPTC through the state. We very much value Roger Williams University, has 3 tiers. There's first line, middle, and executive level courses, as well as FBI Leader replicates that. It's a affiliate of the FBI training division, and they have 3 programs. We're very aggressive with that. I believe if you were to survey other towns, our leadership gets more training than most. We have several members that have been through all of it. One of the things that I would, and later on in the packet it mentions, is the last time I went was 10 years ago, so sometimes you have to refresh. My training and generational differences from that is ancient history right now. I attended some training on artificial intelligence and the ethics of artificial intelligence and when can we use it. That's something that, I think being forward-looking, need to really focus on. Are our officers going to use AI? And if they are, is there a human in the middle that is reviewing and making sure that the report is not just purely artificial intelligence generated? That's correct. There's a very robust training program at each level, and we invest a great deal of time and money into it. So, for instance, your first line supervisor class at Roger Williams is 2 weeks long. And then you go to a week 1, and then the executive one is 3 days because it gets narrowed down, the topics. And having 3 of those, 3 different groups that we go out to. Recently, the lieutenant went to a new one, and it's evading me the name. We're looking into that. I think we should consider sending people to the National Academy. That's a 10-week commitment, a huge commitment. And there's other local things like the Metro West leadership. That was in September. And then the Harvard Business School has an executive leadership class that's it's virtual over time, so you don't leave work. It's about $6,000.
The reason I was asking about sort of the professional development training for yourself and the lieutenant and others, higher in rank, is lifelong learners are the best leaders, right? So lifelong learners set the tone for everybody that works with them, in the organization, that they too can be lifelong learners. So I would like to see specifics of what you would do, in terms of, your professional development, over the next 6 months till we get to the end of the fiscal year in June of 25, whatever it is. Let's talk about that some more in, times.
Yes.
But I think you setting that example would be great and a really positive message to the rest of the team. I know we have to do all this stuff to keep all these credentials and everything in place and do the job, but then professional development can go beyond that too, and we'd like to see everybody rising always. So think that through.
I agree, and thanks for that support. One of the questions we always ask of a candidate is, what did you do to prepare? Because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for someone that's going to be looking to learn and not just walk into an interview and think that they're going to just ace it. People that have been the best officers and throughout the ranks are the ones that are investing in themselves and spending time learning themselves.
Yeah, I try to follow a mantra at work that I don't ask anyone to do anything I wouldn't do myself. I'm not allowed to do certain things because we deal with electricity and, I could hurt somebody, including myself. But I sweep the floor in the warehouse in my jacket. Sometimes I'm wearing a jacket because I'm in meetings, but I will go out and I will sweep that floor because I want the floor clean, and I ask the guys to do it, I will do it. And that applies to everything we do at work. So if you are training, they will be training. If you are professional developing, they will be professional developing, that kind of thing. Mary Jo, on professional growth and development.
I'm just looking at all the things that he's got listed here, and I'm amazed. There's an awful lot for them all to do, and an awful lot of courses, and an awful lot of meetings, and an awful lot of leadership strategy planning, and a lot of work efficiency, as well as budgeting and everything else they have to do. And I would just like to see that expanded, and the credibility to continue to get better and to get even better than that.
Thank you.
What's up?
Yeah.
Joe, anything else kind of general? I know you've jumped in on the one topic, but anything else?
Yeah, so thank you for kind of the overview with the trainings. Obviously, there's a lot for certifications. You talked a lot about, both leadership, what I would consider kind of sounded like specialist trainings, right? Which could go a lot of different directions. Are there any things that you see when you look at like kind of the department as a whole that if you had to prioritize over the next year, like, hey, everyone needs to do more of this, what would be some of those like top things? Because I feel like the specialist ones are kind of, you're going to do those things with different individuals based off their personalities anyways, but just curious.
Yeah, I think, again, everything boils down to the sergeants, and one of the biggest thing we need to do as an organization is take our newer members and teach them our values, the way we do things, and I firmly believe the way to do that is through individual conversations. If you walk up to someone in the locker room and say, hey, I read that report, I noticed you spent a lot of time, or you made this connection or this phone call to this, to someone for outreach to help this person. That's how we're going to impart our values and our Hopkinton Police way, the way that was taught me, and the way that I want to keep going because it works. It really does. So I think given the newness of the department, we really need to focus a lot on supporting them across the ranks, that they need to hear from me. Like you said, they need to see me sweeping the floor so they know that that's the expectation. We keep our station clean, and our station's very clean. But
Do you sweep the floor?
I do everything. I take scuff marks off. There's no putting your feet up on the chairs or tables. There's none of that. So I take a lot of pride. The town has been very supportive. They gave us a beautiful facility. It got destroyed. We rebuilt it, and it's very sharp.
Okay. No, thank you. I agree with the values, especially with we have a younger department, right? I would like to see kind of going into future reviews, kind of thinking about that as, all right, from a skill or, a strategy standpoint, what can you kind of focus on and have, kind of your top three for maybe next year or moving forward?
Good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Amy?
Yeah, I don't think I have too much to add. I appreciate hearing about all the training, and, obviously we have mandatory things that everyone has to do, and I'm glad that they can also choose things that would be specialties that they have more of an interest in. I think that encourages, like Brian was saying, lifelong learning. You need to choose, and there's a huge variety of training available, it looks like. Let's see. And this was, I guess, actually from the last topic a little bit too, but we could, I don't know if it's, you're saying that the sergeants make more than the lieutenants because of they don't get the overtime. I thought in some unions, I guess not this one, you could get your stipends and things rolled into your pension, but but that might be something for a future topic. But I think that's all.
All good?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else, Chief, in terms of the three goals that you had articulated that you were working on this year that we're kind of checking in on now? And those were the three that you had discussed with the previous board, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything that we haven't covered that you want to share this evening?
No. This is a really busy time of the year, and we're going to be, between budgets and union contract negotiations and everything else that goes on, our training, EMT. It's a very intense time of the year. But I just I have an ask. I can't explain enough how much it means when you show support for the troops. Whether it's someone that comments here in this meeting about something they saw on social media, or going to an event, or stopping by the station, I can't express enough how important that is to the troops. And I ask that to any extent you can, find time to do that. They've earned it.
If you had to pick the one thing that you learned in the past year, or, you know, in 2024, that you hadn't sort of seen, realized, thought about, or focused on previously in your career, what would that one thing be? You know, what it could be something that went wrong that you learned from. It could be something that went right that you learned from. I mean, you know, we learn from all kinds of different things. Usually our mistakes are one of the best teachers for us. But what would what would be that answer, you think?
I can share, but it's also a gift. When you know things that people can't be told or learn, or you can't speak, it's hard. It's really hard to sit silent and with a lot of conversations going on and a lot of noise. And
I don't follow you.
So my last year and what I went through, there's things that I know that people don't.
Got it.
They base their opinions on what they know and what they're told. There's stuff that is still untold that will be told.
So those are all.
So what I need to do.
What's the learning in that, though?
That now I have that resolve to understand that it's just the position. It's just the job. It's the job. You know, if you don't want it,
Comes with the territory.
it comes with the territory. It just is. And the other thing is having a good network of people to seek advice and support from. It's critical. You can't go that road alone.
Did you think at one point, like you got to the top, therefore you had it all figured out and you didn't have to talk to anybody? I'm not asking,
Yeah.
I'm not judging, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, for about 1 minute.
That's it, kind of.
For about 1 minute.
For 1 minute.
And then, and I'll tell you, I was moving my office and someone came in my office and shut the door before lunch. I didn't make it to lunch before I had my first hot button topic in my office. But that's the job.
Okay.
And you guys invested a lot in me and gave me a lot of good training and a lot of support over the years. And I'm grateful.
So does that learning, does that help you, you apply that learning somehow now? Like you've learned this in this last year, and so now you're going to do things different going forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson we learned from going way back to historic events in my time as chief is, to any extent that you can, you need to communicate as much as you can right out of the incident. If you have a crisis in the community, you need to get out and say everything you can right in the beginning. And then let people know that there's stuff that you can't say. You know, and you and I have had conversations about this years ago.
Good observation, because I have felt that in the past. Like, why aren't they speaking about X or
Right.
Y or Z? Why aren't we getting ahead of the message, right? Making
Right.
sure people know we're in control of the situation by letting them know we know about it.
Right.
Let alone not speaking about it. I know you can't get into details,
No.
but you got to let people know you're in charge.
So a good example of when you see that in the news is when a chief might come out and say, we don't believe this was a targeted incident. There's no threat to the community. Once the charges are filed, our ability to speak changes. So, but you can, out of a sense of public concern, make statements in the beginning. And we had a very nationally recognized incident where, because of the way it evolved, that we were at a point where we couldn't speak to it. Too much time had elapsed. And that's where I began to learn that lesson and continue to learn and value it. We need, just like the active shooter, if there's concerns in the community, we want to get out and share what we're doing and share what we can do and get feedback on what we can do better, right? That's.
Okay. All right. With that, does the board have any other questions, comments about this mid-year check-in?
I did just want to ask, I don't know if I missed, when will we be finalizing the deputy appointment? In the next couple months? Or?
I think that was one of the asks this evening, is we'd like to get that on our,
So we have-
kind of tabled that.
so it's on us to put it on the agenda. Okay. Okay, and then what is the next step? When is will we do another check-in and then the annual review? Or what are the next steps? I don't know if Jessica
Well,
could answer.
that's what I was going to try to.
Oh, we're
get
going to do
to
next.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is my third appearance for my mid-year review, just
It's
for
been a long
clarity.
mid-year.
Yeah, yeah, very long.
So it was the board, as I recall, and with Elaine's guidance, I think, suggesting that we had to wrap up this mid-year review, okay? So that is this evening. From my vantage point, the mid-year review is now closed. If you guys are all comfortable stating that. If not, speak up. And then, I think, at the end of the fiscal year, like we will do our annual review
So this spring.
in the springtime, so in July 1, somewhere around there.
So my period of review is over. So it was July 1st to June 30th of this year. So there's nothing more I can bring forward, like during this time, this window of time.
Okay, so help me understand that, Elaine.
So those were the FY24 goals, and so now it's FY25.
Did he have an annual review for FY '24? And that was part of sort of the breakdown and all the stuff, okay. So do you agree that you didn't have an annual review for FY '24? You had that mid-year check-in almost at the annual timeline.
I agree, and I feel that for that period, I have said what I can, but I'm also, the clock's ticking on this year. And if I don't have goals set and established, it's going to be hard for me to walk into anything in 2 months or 3 months without being told what you want from me.
Yeah, we're 4 months into the new year.
Right.
So what do you suggest here with this particular dilemma?
So I think Joe suggested 3 goals for FY25.
I did. And I spoke to them throughout the conversation. I think continued community engagement, that's always a must. Investment in our newly promoted and newly hired employees, and keep the professional development going. Because if you do timelines on your command staff, you're going to need a whole new command staff in 6 years.
Okay. Let's do this, though, because we're way past the hour here. I would suggest that we table, if we're closing out '24's mid-year check-in, that this is the best we could do given the scenario. But for FY '25, we need to get goals in place for the chief for this coming year, for this year that we're in. And
They need to be goals that can be accomplished
to
in a
agree on
short
it.
time period, too.
Sorry?
They need to be goals that can be completed in
yeah,
the same
so I
time,
think
short
a
time period.
continuation, I think some of this is just sort of leadership 101, but we can get some specifics going on it. And then, but we got to get everyone back together to make sure we agree on what those goals should be for FY '25. So not Tuesday, next Tuesday, because that's just not enough time, but maybe in December, we could come back for half an hour and talk about new goals going forward. Maybe they're going to be the same, maybe we're going to tweak it a little bit, we'll talk, we'll figure it out. Is that okay?
Yes.
That makes sense to you?
It does.
That makes sense to the board?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
All right, so with that, we'll call it for an evening, call it for tonight. Thanks for coming in, thanks for your input. Keep at it.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Okay, moving right along. Item number 11, special town meeting. It's next Monday, the whatever it is, November 18th, rather. 7 o'clock at the middle school, I assume, auditorium. Elaine, what do we need to do?
So the board needs to make recommendations on 2 articles, and those are 6 and 7, which is rescinding the debt and the Board of Health revolving fund.
So let's just walk this through. We get to town meeting, the moderator does the articles, the moderator asks for various boards and committees to weigh in based on whether they need to weigh in or not. That's what this question is right now, correct?
So there's required recommendations for some articles, and some don't have required recommendations, and there are a couple that require the select board to make a recommendation. And the recommendation is for a town meeting to adopt the change.
and that's for items 6 and 7.
Right, so 6 is rescinding $1.8 million in debt, and 7 is establishing a revolving fund for the Board of Health.
Why isn't the meals excise one of those? Because the board's the one presenting it.
The town council did some research and found that there wasn't a required recommendation, but of course, I mean, you could vote a recommendation anyway, but it's not required.
So we won't be asked that by the moderator unless the moderator chooses to ask.
Correct.
We don't.
It doesn't hurt to vote to recommend it anyway, I guess.
Right. So what's happened in the past, just my experience, and this goes way back now, is the board would make recommendations at town meeting, and the town moderator didn't want them. But they wanted to have the recommendation made anyway, and it just got into this little bit of a contest back and forth. Like, we don't need your recommendation. That's happened. So I want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in that situation. I'm happy to take the votes and stuff, but then we just sit on it, and if we're asked, we'll tell them. But we don't just jump up the microphone and chime in when we're not supposed to. That's what we did in the past.
That's why we only do the required recommendations typically.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
It just, I don't know, it seems like, I understand what you're saying, but it just seems kind of silly. Like, it's our article, surely we can recommend it.
Well, I think on that one, we should be ready. I agree with you. But in general, like, for example, the means tested senior property tax exemption. The Appropriation Committee makes that thing. In years past, boards past, well before anybody sitting up here today, the board would say, we need to weigh in on it. We run the show, blah, blah, blah. And they would get their backsides handed to them at town meeting when the moderator would say, I don't care what your recommendation is.
Okay, but Elena's
That's
only
what I'm talking
asking us
about.
for 6 and 7, it sounds like, right?
Right.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, but like, I totally get that and where it can be a problem with the moderator, but also doesn't the town kind of look for our opinion on things?
not necessarily.
Well, I'm just saying, I think a lot of people do though, and just look
Some
for
people
guidance
do, and some people don't.
on big articles. They want to know, how does the board think about that? I'm not saying like that we come out and just say it, but I think it's to have, I think going back to the original point, to have an opinion ahead of time. Maybe not share it, but be ready to.
The last town meeting I was at, every single article, just one sentence, and it wasn't just from, it was from appropriations, it was from a number of committees, and people would just get up and say, the select board recommends approval. Period.
Anything financial, I think we did.
Huh?
All the financial things we did, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I want to do that when we're supposed to do that. I personally don't want to do that when we should not, or the moderator does not ask us to do that. That's my point. We should be in a not irritating town meeting business. Sometimes we can irritate the town if we just try to stick our nose into things where it doesn't really belong. Town meeting's a whole different game than what we play here. They run the show. We don't run the show at town meeting. Okay, with that, Elaine, you want us to take up a motion to support rescinding the debt and establishing the revolving fund, correct?
Those are articles that require your recommendation.
So let's tackle those first, because they require our recommendation. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve articles, the town meeting adopt Articles 6 and 7?
So moved. No, I'll make a motion that the town meeting adopt Articles 6 and 7 with the recommendations of the Appropriations Committee and the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table and a second to recommend approval of Articles 6 and 7, special town meeting. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. So when they ask us, we will say the select board recommends approval. Great, on those two articles. Article 1, 2, and 3 are all tax exemptions.
Right.
We don't need to make a recommendation. Does anybody want to vote on them now, just to be ready?
Well, they're pretty straightforward. I mean, they're just changes in the exemption process. And I know we already have the means tested exemption, and we're doing a new form of veterans exemption, but they're written out in the Massachusetts general laws. I mean, we're not really changing a whole lot. We're just tweaking these exemptions for for additions. So, I mean, I have no problem recommending all three of them.
So the chair will entertain a motion to, if asked at town meeting, if the select board recommends these three articles, our answer would be yes.
Yes.
That's a good way to do it, that we won't offer it unless they ask, but that we'll have the answer ready.
So moved.
So we have a motion on the table. If asked at town meeting, we'll say yes, we would recommend. Is there a second on that motion?
Second.
You good with that motion, Elaine? That doesn't mean anybody can't walk up to the microphone as an individual member out there and say what you want to say, right?
Okay.
If we're asked, we'll talk, but otherwise, we won't on these three. Okay, so we have a motion on the table in a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so these I'll create a new category, if asked. Yes, yes, and yes. We covered, okay, the meals tax. This is our motion. And there's going to be some discussion about this. I was not at the meeting when this was put in place. I understand what everyone did, and I get it. Does somebody want to make this motion, and does somebody want to do a presentation for this one?
So I will be doing a presentation for it.
Okay.
I've been working with the chamber. I feel like the motion to recommend is inherently in there since it's ours. I feel like we already recommended it by putting it on there, like we're sponsoring it. So it seems kind of built in, unless someone has a problem with that.
Well, I think given that Brian wasn't there that night, it might be a good idea to just, to reiterate, I don't know. But we did have a majority of 4 that voted for it.
I think it was
Okay.
unanimous between the 4.
Correct, I think so.
So is everyone good with Joe giving the presentation on the meals tax? Everyone good with that? Okay, so that's, Joe's got that. And the motion, I think you should read the motion if they ask us to read the motion too.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
You'll be sitting right up front, and there'll be
that's fine.
microphones, and you'll just read the motion.
Yep.
So we'll have that motion ready, prepared for him. Town council will have that prepared. So that's
Sounds
good? All right. Okay, next up, transfer Hughes Farm parcels. Elaine, can you walk us through this one? I'm not,
Yes, so this is one that the town manager submitted for Open Space Commission, and it just transfers the parcels from the select board to open space so that we can place a conservation restriction on it as is required because the land was purchased with CPC funds.
okay. Who's our open space liaison?
So,
Is that me?
Joe is,
No,
It's you? Okay.
and the chair of Open Space will be away and will not be present.
special town meeting without Ed.
I know. Do you want to make that motion at the special town meeting for the open space article?
Sure.
Okay. So Mary Jo make the motion, and the presentation will be Elaine.
It'll be like 2 sentences. But happy to do it.
I know you love that stuff.
I have one question.
Comes with a job now, though.
Yes. Well,
Okay, so you'll do the motion, and Elaine will do the presentation.
Okay.
yeah.
Everybody good with that? Do we want to vote either one of these if asked? Or we already did that? You did that with the motion, you did that with the other one. We already did that, basically. Because they're already on there.
So,
Well, Article
you know.
5, I submitted.
Yeah, okay. All right, and we did the 6 and 7, and the MBTA communities.
Planning board will make its recommendation at town meeting.
Yeah.
We have to vote still.
Do we have their recommendation yet?
They had a vote on a recommendation, and it was a tie vote.
Yeah, so
So they
it's
need to
still,
vote
it's still the 2, right? Going
So
into
there are
it.
two
They're moving forward too.
voting again.
But my understanding was that the other parcels that were considered could still be in play if someone on the floor made a motion.
Okay, so for tonight's purposes, there's nothing we can do because they don't even have a recommendation yet.
I would consider, I wouldn't think we should recommend a particular map because there's the flux of which map. But I would consider that maybe we should make a recommendation on the financial aspect of it. On would we defend a lawsuit if the town votes it down, or would and that's an expense? And would we, in acknowledging the loss of the grants? Right.
There's not going to be a motion on the floor to defend a lawsuit.
Right, but we will have to make, if it doesn't pass, we will have to make that decision whether or not to defend the lawsuit after, I guess. Wait to just.
Here's what,
Leave that to after the fact.
here's what I would suggest. We have a posted meeting for Monday evening at 6:15 or 6:30. And we could take this up then,
Okay.
because we might know more, hopefully.
Might know more.
We'll know more then.
Okay.
But I would suggest maybe tabling it for right now and looking at that Monday evening. I think if we post our meeting for 6:15, Elaine, that probably makes the most sense.
Okay.
Make sure we have enough time to cover this if it's going to be.
And will the planning board be meeting at the same time to make a final recommendation?
I don't know if they'll be meeting then or earlier.
Earlier, okay. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up too is Elaine provided us a list of the grants that we might want or not want to apply for. But then I thought I heard John Gelsich say, I watched the whole public hearing, that Milton, who was already in violation of the law, they lost other grants that were not on the initial list, because any grant that says you must be in full compliance with the state law, you're not eligible for, even if it's not specifically an MBTA community-related grant.
They reserve the right to add grants to that list or to reach into grants that you've already received and remove them.
Yeah. So I don't know if we should triple check about the MSBA school building fund, if that, does it have that provision in that grant that you have to be in compliance with all laws to receive? Because that's just a huge loss of money if that's the case. It might be worth triple checking, because we might get asked, I think.
So the list on the town website is the ones we know of.
The one we know of, yeah.
There are others that they can add at any time.
Wow, okay.
Okay, so I think we have a plan for special town meeting. Everybody good? Comfortable? Okay. And we'll convene at 6:15 at the middle school auditorium, in the middle school auditorium. It'll be a public meeting, so we can just go right down front and have our meeting, and if people want to stand there and watch us, they can.
Usually it's been in a separate room lately, one of the
How
classrooms.
would we do it?
The band room.
Whatever.
Okay.
Okay. Town manager report, please.
Just briefly, Main Street Corridor Project update. Eversource has completed the majority of the overhead transfer work. Overhead electric infrastructure to undergrounding continues. Looking at early December, hopefully to complete the work. Awaiting information from Eversource before connections into buildings on the east side can be scheduled. Verizon is the last for the overhead transfer work, but has not yet provided a confirmed schedule. Continuing to work on that. Existing utility poles located between Police Station and Ash Street will be removed once the new underground infrastructure is operational, and utility services for the properties in the area have been transferred to the new underground system. Some walkways at 77 Main and 35 Main will be completed, and the brickwork has been completed.
So just real quick, if I could add on to that, Eversource said in a call recently that it is their intention to have all of their work done by December 15th. So that's a huge step for us, because that opens the floodgates to finish everything else, aesthetically out there, and road surface and everything else.
But what about Comcast and Verizon?
So, yeah, I said Eversource a couple of times for that very reason, right? Comcast is pretty much done with their work, okay? West of here.
Good.
And downtown, they're still doing their thing a little bit, but they're pretty much done. Verizon, I'm having a meeting with on Friday, because I don't think they've started yet. And they are the ones that own finishing what's on the poles and getting those poles out of here, right? Because they have the poles. And we're going to find out more on Friday about what that plan is. So we're making good progress. We are going into next year, obviously, with Eversource and everyone wrapping up in the wintertime. They're not shutting down for the winter. Utilities don't have to shut down for the winter. They may get pulled out for storm duty and things like that, but they're going to continue going and continue their work and get this thing wrapped up so that in the springtime, we can come back here and finish it up.
But they can't do the paving, though, till the wires, right? That's
That's the thing. The
That's the
poles
thing,
are in the
yeah.
way of paving. The poles are a problem right now, so we got to finish Eversource, Verizon, and Comcast. Poles come out, poles get moved, to the double poles out here get moved, and then paving can happen. You clean up the rest of the sidewalks where poles were, et cetera.
Okay,
And then
so we can-
landscaping and everything else. So landscaping, you don't put trees in so that you yank wires down on top of the trees and snap it in two.
course, yeah.
We have to get the wires out of the way downtown, and there's a boatload of trees coming down here. So once all that's done, we'll get it
okay.
all.
So they can continue with the wire work during the winter,
Correct.
except with storms, but then they can ideally do the paving and then in the spring. Is that?
Correct.
And if we go past the deadline for the easements are going to expire right in the summer?
I don't know what the easement situation is. That hasn't been a topic of discussion, but there's not much work to do in the easement areas anymore anyway. They're kind of done.
So it might be most of the easement, temporary easements might be done by then. Okay, that will be good. Yeah.
So that's where we are. Thanks, Elaine, sorry.
And there are no town department position vacancies to discuss.
I have a question, not necessarily specific to this, but you sent out a thing from Elaine Lazarus the other day with all kinds of different things going on in Town Hall. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? I thought it was great, but...
She does it every week.
Huh?
She does it every
I
week.
didn't see it every week.
Every week, I send out something every Thursday with things going on in the
How am
community.
I missing that?
Are you not subscribed?
Well, I have 78,000 emails I haven't opened. So.
Well, this is the most important one, so.
Yeah, okay, well, I think it was great. I just hadn't seen one, and I was like, wow, look at all that. Good. All set?
Yes.
Item number 13, liaison reports, board invites. Mary Jo.
Okay, I went, the Garden Club had a 100-year celebration at the Country Club, and it was very, very nice. And I wanted to congratulate them on the work that they do. They're kind of unsung heroes in town. I mean, they do the common, they do the flowers, they do the big jardiniers that are all over town in the summertime, and they do so much, and they don't really get a lot of recognition for it, except that we see it and we know it's springtime, or we see it in the summer, and they do a wonderful job. So congratulations to them for 100 years. I went to a Council on Aging meeting, and that was very enlightening. They are going to be coming before us. They did talk a little about their budget requests, which right now isn't very much. So I'm hoping, we'll be able to accommodate that when they come forward. And my MWRTA meeting was moved to the 17th, so I haven't done that yet.
All set?
And that's it. Yep.
Joe.
The only thing I had was the most recent open space meeting. They had a resident come up with the idea to put some signage around the trails on the Hughes property to incorporate some history of the area, which was unanimously voted by open space. It's now going to go to the Historical Commission to see if it can get approved for funding and just provide a little bit of history to one part of town. I got nothing else.
Okay, thank you. Amy.
I think it came in too late for this meeting, but we did get a vacancy notice from the Historic District Commission. Did they send that to you, Elaine? It'll be on the next agenda, okay. And then I was going to say the Scotch Diwali Gala is coming up this weekend at the Happiness Center for the Arts, and I think tickets are available online. I believe it's Saturday evening. And I think that's all I have. And just, I would advise people to look at the planning board materials online about the MBTA Communities Act and to read up on that, because it's a complex topic and it will be a hot topic at town meeting. But all the information is online on the town website. And I asked Connor about this because I forgot to ask here, but it sounds like we are doing electronic voting at town meeting again, so that's great. It really just seemed to make things go faster and smoother.
All set? Okay, I have nothing to add at this time.
Can I
Go ahead.
just add one thing? I worked very hard for the last few weeks down in the town clerk's office, getting ready for this election, and I want to compliment them. They did a wonderful job. It's very difficult, much more difficult than most people understand, with the filing and the stamping and everything they have to do. It's unbelievable. And there were a number of volunteers working with them besides myself. And they really, the election went off flawlessly, and everybody should be very confident in the way we do things here in Hopkinton. It's just fantastic. He's doing a great job.
Okay, thank you. Next item number 14, future agenda items. We've been chipping away at all this stuff, and I don't think we need to go through it all this evening, but two questions I have. One, Water and Sewer Commission applications. How is that going?
You have one applicant.
We have one applicant for the Water and Sewer Commission, okay? So we need more applicants than that, okay? How have we posted that, publicized that?
We've issued it, the vacancy notice 2 or 3 times, put it in my weekly update a couple of times, trying to get the word out there.
Okay.
And so,
Suggestions on other ways to reach out?
The Southborough project has been on hold since July. Like, I don't know that we can really wait much longer.
Well,
Like,
if we can't get people interested to do the job, then we're going to have to do something else, you're right.
Yeah.
You know, we have a $40 or $50 million project, depending on who you're talking to, coming at us. So if the town's not interested in working on a $40 or $50 million project, and we have to proceed somehow, you know, we'll see, I guess, but it really would be nice to get some professional focus on that from people that know that world. Okay, how about the Trails Committee?
So that one will have to schedule a public hearing and an administrative order. So we'll schedule that for December. Because we're transferring appropriations, we have to go through the procedure that's in the charter for the administrative order to establish that committee.
But the Trails Committee itself is still up and running, or the Trails Management is still running, but that's going to wind down once we do that. So
They're still in business.
we need to get that after a special town meeting. It's got to be kind of high on the list.
Yep.
Okay? All right. Anybody have any other questions, comments on future board agenda items?
My only thing was, Elaine, you said before, if we're talking about like the active shooter response next week, like you're going to reach out to the schools and make sure that they're bringing whoever they want from their side? Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good?
I'm good.
Okay. The Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Have a good night. Thank you.